Somewhere in this video, you'll hear something that sounds made up, but it isn't. What it is, however, is pointless. And yet, you're still here. So here are 3 hours of things you never needed to know. A phone sits in your pocket, or maybe your bag. The headphones are tucked in beside it, or wrapped, maybe, once or twice, not enough. You reach for them later, expecting to pull them free. But they don't come out, not all the way. They're tangled again. A silent knot. Loops folded inside loops, one earbud wrapped around the other, like it's trying to hold on. You tug. It tightens. You sigh, and begin the untangling. One hand holds the knot, the other picks at the loops, slowly pulling them apart. It doesn't take long, or maybe it does. No one really times it. A minute, 2, sometimes more. It depends on the day. It depends on the knot. It depends on how patient you feel before giving up and just using one ear. The knots are always different. Some are gentle, loose spirals that come undone with a breath. Others are dense, tensioned. They feel purposeful, even though you know they aren't. The cord moves like it remembers how it tangled itself last time. Headphones didn't always do this. There was a time when cords were thick, coiled like telephones, heavier, slower. But as they got smaller, sleeker, thinner, they started tangling more, not from motion, just from sitting still. Some scientists studied this. They dropped cords into boxes and shook them. They found that the longer the wire, the more likely it was to knot, that knots form fast, much faster than you'd think, and they rarely form just one at a time. Still, we keep using them. Even with Bluetooth and wireless buds, the old cords linger, tucked in drawers, wrapped around controllers, looped in the corners of backpacks, waiting for a chance to fold in on themselves again. There's something strange about how it happens. You roll them carefully. You place them in your pocket. You take 3 steps, and suddenly, they're twisted like ivy. No bumps, no falls, just time, and a little movement. Some people develop methods, little rituals, wrapping them around their fingers, using binder clips, special cases, Velcro ties. It helps for a while, but eventually even the best wrapping gives way to the same tiny chaos. There's no big harm in it, just an interruption, just a delay. The song starts later. The coal waits a little longer. You fidget, you breathe, and you pull the last loop free, like it never happened. Sometimes, the tangle is stubborn. A knot so small, you have to use your nails. Twist the cord, work it backward, back through itself. It feels like solving something, like unlocking a code you didn't mean to make. And when it's finally free, you don't celebrate. You just put them in. Start the music. The knot is forgotten almost instantly. But your fingers remember. They remember the twists, the pattern. And next time, they'll move faster. You'd think it would get annoying, but it doesn't. Not really. Because somewhere in that short little puzzle, there's comfort, repetition, something to do with your hands while your mind wanders. Maybe that's why we don't give them up. The tangles, the pause, the tiny effort it takes to make something useful again, to fix what wasn't really broken, to unmake something that never meant to exist. Even now, a cord lies still somewhere, already beginning to bend, already folding itself into the shape it likes, waiting for the pocket, waiting for the shake, waiting for your hands to find it again. And when you do, you won't mind. You'll tug, twist, pull, and release. And for a minute your day will pause, just long enough to solve a problem that solves nothing. And then you'll press play. There's a quiet pause as the microwave door clicks shut. Inside, 2 grapes sit on a plate, cut, but barely, their skin still touching at the base. You press the button. The machine hums to life. It starts like any other snack, but this one isn't quite ordinary. You don't see much at first, just the slow spin of the turntable. The grapes wobble a little, then settle. A few seconds pass, then something flickers. A flash, not bright, but sharp. It comes and goes like a blink. Then another, a glow trapped between the 2 halves. It almost looks like fire, but not quite. More like plasma. A shimmer caught between worlds. A tiny line of light, dancing in the space where the grape used to be whole. It lingers, then fades, and the microwave stops with a chime. You open the door, the air feels warm and still. The grapes are split, charred a little on the edges, and in the center, where they touched, a scorched mark on the plate, like something tried to escape. It's strange, subtle, almost invisible, unless you knew to look. People discovered this by accident. A fruit experiment, a joke online, but the result kept happening. The grapes kept glowing, sparks in small kitchens, flickers in dorm rooms, curious minds leaning closer. Not quite science, not quite magic, just something in between. Eventually, researchers paid attention. Physicists, engineers, they measured the flashes, filmed the sparks in slow motion, and found that grapes or anything shaped like them could trap microwaves in a way that other objects didn't. Not just absorb them, amplify them. Inside a microwave, energy moves in waves. Most food just heats up. But when you cut a grape and leave the skin connecting the halves, it forms a small cavity, a space just the right size to trap waves. And when those waves bounce, they grow. The air between the halves becomes charged. Energy stacks on energy, until the molecules in the air can't hold still anymore. They break, they rip apart, and in that instant, plasma forms, the same kind you'd find in lightning, in stars, in science labs behind locked doors. But here, it happens in your kitchen, on a plate, with fruit. It's not dangerous, not right away, but it's not safe either. The microwave wasn't made for this, and neither was the grape. Still, for a few seconds, the two work together and create something rare. It doesn't only work with grapes, other fruits, small plastic beads, wet paper balls, anything with the right shape. The right curve, the right space between parts. The machine doesn't care what it heats. It just moves energy. But sometimes energy has other plans. People tried filming it. Some slowed it down until each spark became a pulse of violet light. Others mapped the heat, the radiation, the sound. Each experiment showed the same result: a flash, a glow, and a trace left behind, like a fingerprint made of heat. It never lasts long. The burst is small. The air cools quickly. But in those moments, something unusual happens. A pocket of light, born from fruit, not designed, not built. Something ancient, hiding inside something sweet. Even now, someone is probably trying it again. Somewhere, a grape is being sliced. A microwave is humming. A plate is spinning slowly, and two halves begin to spark. Another flicker, another flame, another quiet burst of something you weren't supposed to see. It's easy to forget what microwaves are. Silent beams moving through space, pushing molecules without touch, pulling warmth from within, and when they meet the right shape, they change. They wake something up, something that only exists for a second, then disappears. You can't hold it, you can't stop it, but you can see it, if you're quick. A sliver of light between two pieces of fruit, a spark between surfaces, a message written in heat, one that says, there's more here than you thought. Most people never try it. Some don't believe it, others don't care. But the grape remembers, the plate remembers, and the microwave, still humming in kitchens all over the world, waits for someone curious enough to ask again. Just two halves, a cut, a spark, a shape that wasn't planned, and in the middle, a flicker, then nothing, then silence. The sidewalk moves beneath you, steady and smooth. People pass on either side. Cars slide by in the street. The air hums with distant noise, but ahead the storefronts change something. Glass panes, clean displays, lighted objects, and without deciding, your pace begins to slow. You don't stop. Not completely, just enough. One step becomes a little longer, a little softer. Your body adjusts on its own. The rhythm you had while walking fades. You move in time with something quieter now, something unspoken, something just behind the glass. You might not even know what you're looking at. Sometimes it's shoes, or watches, or tiny folded sweaters in soft folded stacks. It could be a display made for someone else, but still it pulls you in. Or maybe not in, just sideways. The motion drifts, one step to the right. Your head turns slightly. Your feet do too. You're still walking, but not forward anymore. Not fully. There's a pause happening while your legs keep moving. A moment stretched across glass. Most stores plan for this. They don't just build windows, they build stages. Small scenes, lit with care, dressed with balance. Nothing too crowded, nothing too empty. Just enough space for your imagination to slip between the items and rearrange them. The distance matters. The glass makes it feel close but safe. You don't have to enter. You don't have to commit. You can just drift. Let your eyes move over color and shape, while your steps slow to match the softness of your gaze. Your body senses the invitation before your mind catches up. The sidewalk feels less urgent, the goal less clear. It's not about buying anything. It's about seeing, about being seen. A mutual glance between person and display. People do this without learning. Children slow down at toy windows, adults at jewelry, tourists at anything unfamiliar. It doesn't need to be useful, it just needs to be arranged with care. That's enough to lower the tempo of a walk. The glass reflects more than your face. It bounces light, movement, people walking behind you, a scene layered with motion. And somewhere in that layered moment, your feet fall into a slower rhythm. Not a stop, just a drift. The world inside the window doesn't move, but it feels like it might. You almost expect a mannequin to blink, for a scarf to flutter, even without wind. There's something theatrical in it, something staged, but unfinished, and your mind tries to finish it. There's a comfort in that, looking at things without needing them, watching without choosing, letting your brain sketch little stories from fabric and light. Maybe you picture wearing it, or gifting it, or not at all. Maybe you just enjoy how it's arranged. Even now people move this way, in cities, on quiet streets, at airports, at malls. Their bodies slow when their eyes find a window worth noticing. The brain leans in, the stride shortens, and the world feels like it's tilting just slightly sideways. You probably won't remember what was in the display, but you'll remember that pause, that slow floating moment of interest. Your body remembers too. It learns to slow here, just a little, just enough to wonder. There's no rule for how long it lasts. A few seconds, a whole block, one window or 5. But eventually your steps return to normal. The street comes back into focus. The glass falls behind. And yet the rhythm stays a little softer, a little less sharp. You might walk faster now, but the drift stays with you. In your posture, in the way your hands move, in how your gaze lingers longer than it did before. Someone else will pass you, someone in a hurry, someone not looking at the windows. Their pace won't change, but yours already did. Not because you stopped, but because something made you float. And somewhere behind you, that same glass waits, still reflecting, still showing, still asking, still catching footsteps that don't know they've slowed. The knife slides through the soft edge of the cheese, the way it resists just slightly, then gives way with a satisfying break. The shape of the slice, perhaps thinner than usual, or slightly thicker, might seem inconsequential, but in that moment, the world seems to slow. Just a bit. A small wedge, a thick chunk, a fine, thin slice. How different do they really taste? You might think there's no real distinction. Cheese is cheese after all. Still, there's something about the way it feels on your tongue, the way it rests there, that feels distinctly different when it's cut into a particular shape. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but it's there. It's like how a slightly smaller spoon makes the ice cream seem richer, or how a sharper fork makes the cake taste more indulgent. The shape of the cheese, whether a cube or a sliver, seems to unlock something in the experience. The difference is barely acknowledged, but it lingers. Even now, you might reach for a piece, drawn to its form more than its flavor. A cube feels compact, solid, perhaps more filling. A thin wedge, it stretches the moment longer, teasing your senses with an almost imperceptible delay. Could it be that the experience is dictated by more than just taste? Perhaps it's the geometry that dances with the tongue. There's a story buried in how these shapes were designed, crafted to amplify the very act of tasting. The more surface area a piece has, the more contact with the mouth, more texture, more sensation. A triangle offers a different rhythm, a shape that guides your bite in a way a simple square can't. It's not something you've likely thought about before. Yet, without much thought, you might find yourself preferring the sharpness of a small, tidy triangle, or the gentle curve of a wedge. The edges, the way the cheese breaks down in your mouth, all play into a carefully measured experience that goes beyond flavor alone. Consider the last time you shared a cheese board. The different pieces laid out in their own little corners, each piece cut with purpose. You didn't just pick any slice. You chose the one that suited the moment, the one that felt right depending on its form. Perhaps you gravitated toward the slice with the thin edge, savoring its delicate nature, or the chunkier block, which seemed more substantial. In each choice, the shape had a quiet power, guiding your senses in a way that taste alone couldn't. The shape, as it turns out, was working its magic without you noticing. Still, this dance of form and flavor isn't confined to cheese alone. The world is full of food that takes on a new character when shaped differently. A round, soft biscuit might feel more comforting than a flat one. The shape shifts the context of how we experience it, as if it's somehow a different thing entirely. Without much thought, you might choose the wedge over the square, or the round over the rectangular, simply because it feels right. There's no logic to it. The shape is telling you something, quietly, without words, and you follow it, trusting it without a second guess. You might not realize it, but you're part of an ancient ritual, one where form and function align in ways that influence more than just flavor. Cheese, like many things in life, holds secrets in its shape. It invites you to taste in a way that stretches beyond what the eyes can see. And so, when you slice the next piece of cheese, perhaps you'll notice it more, its shape, the way it sits on the plate. The shape matters in ways you've never consciously considered, and yet it's always been there, helping guide the experience, offering something small but meaningful, something that quietly holds your attention. Maybe you'll notice it tomorrow, the next time you're choosing between wedges and cubes. Maybe you won't. It simply waits, quiet, unchanged. There's something strange that happens every time you do laundry. You fold your clothes, smooth them out, and then suddenly, a left sock is gone. Without much thought, you dismiss it. Maybe it slipped behind the dryer, you tell yourself. But then, next time, the same thing. The left sock, once again, missing. Still, you continue, always searching for the left one, never the right. You could never lose both, but the left, it always seems to slip away unnoticed. Sometimes you wonder if it's the universe playing a small trick, just one in a long line of mysteries that don't quite add up. The right sock, though, always there. Even now, a small part of you might still be checking the dryer for that missing sock, turning it over, pulling out the lint screen. But the left one remains absent. Just a slight irregularity in your routine, unacknowledged but quietly persistent. You've probably never questioned it because it's so familiar. You just look for the next left sock, without much thought. You've probably accepted it as something unavoidable. Perhaps you even joke about it. A small, everyday mystery that's so trivial, it doesn't bear questioning. Yet, the more it happens, the more curious it seems. Why the left? Is there something about that one sock, or something about how our brains perceive them? At some point, this small detail started to pile up, forming an odd pattern. The sock vanishes, quietly, subtly, not an obvious theft, but more like it dissolves into the air. No one's to blame, no explanation, just the fact. And with each disappearance, something deeper begins to happen. You begin to wonder if it could be more than chance. You might think that it's simply about habit, but there's something else at play, something about how our minds are wired. Perhaps it's the way we organize, the way we think of pairs. When you pull a pair of socks from the drawer, there's a moment when they feel complete, symmetrical. But symmetry is often an illusion. Somewhere, between the routine of folding and sorting, Our brains pick up on this small asymmetry, the left and the right, subtly separating them. It's not that we lose focus, it's more that with each step of sorting, the left sock becomes just a little less important. And it doesn't take much. A glance here, a shift in focus there, it seems almost automatic, yet so much more complex than it appears. We are creatures of habit. After all, even in small things like socks, our brains try to simplify. The right sock gets folded carefully, its twin placed just beside it. But the left, it's the odd one out. And somehow in its quiet oddness, it vanishes. You might notice it in the way you sort the laundry. The right sock always ends up neatly placed, no matter how quickly you fold it. But the left seems to slip away just a little easier. Maybe it's not a loss, but a small shift in perspective, a tiny subconscious decision to give up on it, to let it float away. And so this pattern continues. As you reach into the pile for the matching pair, you might pause, realizing once more that the left sock has escaped again. You could retrace your steps, you could search under the bed or shake out the clothes, but it always ends the same way. The right remains. This small detail, this habitual loss, becomes a strange part of your life. You never question it, and in a way you've accepted it. The left sock slipping away is no longer an anomaly. It's just another piece of the puzzle that's been missing for as long as you've been folding socks. It happens, and you move on. Without much thought, you pull out a new pair from the drawer, and as you reach for the left sock once more, you don't wonder why. It's just the way things are. The pattern repeats, and you move forward, folding, sorting, and living in the small continuous mystery. In time, perhaps you'll forget about it entirely. The pattern becomes so familiar, it doesn't even surprise you. The left sock is simply part of the rhythm, a fleeting moment you never have to explain. It slips away with quiet consistency, always missing, but never truly gone. Maybe you'll think about it again next time you do laundry, or maybe not. It doesn't matter. It simply waits, quiet, unchanged. There's a sound you might not remember, but once you hear it, you'll feel it. The faint but distinct chime that sounds when an elevator reaches its floor. It's subtle, but it lingers in your mind, like a forgotten memory. It's a tiny moment, yet it resonates with something deeper. You've probably never wondered why the chimes are the way they are. In fact, most people don't even notice them. But if you listen closely, you might begin to feel the subtle shifts in your mood when the chimes play. There's an underlying rhythm, a pulse to it, almost like an invitation to something unspoken. The sound varies. Some elevators sing a clear, almost melodic tune, while others offer a short, clipped note that feels more like an announcement. Each one carries a different weight, a different energy, as though the sound itself is adjusting to the space it occupies. And yet, they all do the same thing: usher you in, help you rise or descend. Even now, think of those chimes. Maybe a particular one comes to mind, one that you've heard countless times in the past. It might not be the tone or pitch that stands out, but something else: the way it made you feel, how your chest tightened or your shoulders relaxed when the chime played. These sounds move within us, quietly. Somewhere in the hum of everyday life, those chimes become tied to our experiences, our emotions. They mark transitions, the beginning of a ride, the pause before a decision, the slight anticipation before the doors open. They're not just there to tell you that the floor has arrived, they tell you that something is about to happen. It's the way some chimes feel like an exhale, letting you know that all is in order, while others are a sharp gasp, a sudden burst of sound that cuts through the space. There's one, for example, that makes you want to take a step back, as if to pause. Another might make you lean in, as if urging you forward. These are emotions captured in sound, encoded in ways we rarely examine. But the choice of chime isn't random. There's an entire process behind its creation. Designers spend time selecting the exact tone, length, and rhythm. Sometimes, a seemingly innocuous note can be the result of months of testing, with data showing how it impacts a person's mood. Without much thought, you've likely noticed the difference between a high, playful chime and one that's deep and resonant. The lighter ones tend to bring a sense of calm, like the gentle chime of an old-fashioned elevator. The deeper, more somber chimes evoke a kind of quiet solemnity, signaling something more serious, a shift in the air. The variety exists because the experience of an elevator ride is not always the same. Sometimes, you're stepping into the unknown, heading to an important meeting. Other times, it's a routine trip, an effortless glide between floors. And the chimes, in their gentle way, reflect this subtle shift in context. You might have even noticed how, when waiting for an elevator, your thoughts seem to align with the chimes. A soft chime is almost like a lullaby, calming your nerves if you're feeling anxious. A sharp percussive one stirs your mind into readiness, alerting you that something's happening, that time is moving. Still, the chimes rarely demand attention. They don't beg for your focus. They're not meant to be intrusive. Instead, they work in the background, shaping the space, filling the air with something gentle, something ordered. Even now, in the stillness of a waiting room or hallway, you might hear a chime echo in the distance, signaling the arrival of someone else. Maybe the next time you step into an elevator, you'll notice the chime before anything else. Perhaps you'll catch yourself reacting, just a little, to its call, noticing how it shifts your mind or how it settles you into place. The door opens, and for a brief moment, the world feels a little more aligned, the sound guiding you forward. It doesn't matter if you remember the sound, or the elevator, or even the time you first heard it. But the next time you do hear that chime, you might pause and feel its subtle weight, its quiet invitation. That unspoken invitation that somehow always seems to know the moment you need it. And when it fades, like it always does, it leaves a trace, a lingering sense that something in the air shifted. Maybe you'll notice it tomorrow, or maybe you never will. It simply waits, quiet, unchanged. The armrest, something you touch every day. But if you stop to consider it, you might notice how little attention is paid to it. In the park, on the bus, or in a waiting area, there's something quietly familiar about the armrest. It's always there. It's always waiting. Still, there's something curious about the way fingers brush against it. If you let yourself notice, you might see how it happens: a slight nudge, a momentary grip, a rest that lingers. The skin brushes against the cold metal or worn wood. People come, sit, and leave. But the armrest stays. There's no fanfare, no acknowledgement. The armrest is simply part of the furniture, part of the scene. A stranger's hand might brush it lightly, and another person might settle their weight against it, their fingers curling in a brief grip, just a small action. Yet countless times each hour, without much thought, it happens again. The fingers glide or press, testing the surface, gauging its comfort or firmness. A pause, a shift, an involuntary response to a moment of stillness, and then, once more, the hand pulls away. The armrest waits. A connection. A brief, silent exchange. Perhaps it's the design that encourages this. The armrest is built for comfort, to offer support during the time we spend sitting, but also, it's positioned just right to invite touch. It's not just functional, it's there, in a quiet way, waiting to be interacted with, even if only for a second. Even now you can see it. The way someone shifts on the bench, the palm reaching instinctively toward the armrest. A momentary connection, a small action that passes almost unnoticed. And yet, if you could measure it, if you could count it, you might see how often this touch occurs in just an hour. Maybe it's a tap, a subtle graze, or a deliberate press of the arm. It's an action so automatic that we don't think twice about it, but it happens again and again, unnoticed by most. The touch lingers only for a second, but it's enough to leave its trace, to mark a small piece of the world with its presence. The armrest doesn't judge. It holds no agenda. It simply exists in the space between people, ready to be touched whenever it's needed. Whether it's a child waiting for their parent, an elderly woman resting after a long walk, or a businessman catching a break, each one interacts with the armrest in their own quiet way. Without much thought, people come and go. The touch might be soft, fleeting, or even firm. And in the stillness, in the quiet moments, it's easy to forget how often this simple connection is made. Each touch is small, but when you add them all up, the armrest is touched far more often than you might imagine. A pattern begins to emerge. A rhythm. The armrest, always in the background, becomes a subtle point of contact, a fleeting interaction between strangers. There's a quiet comfort in the consistency of this action. It's the kind of thing that happens without effort, without anyone even being aware of it. Still, there's something peaceful about it. A bench, a small moment of rest, and an armrest that bears the weight of it all. The human touch, though brief, makes its mark on the surface. It's as if the armrest, by its very nature, invites this quiet connection. It's where we pause, even if only for a moment. If you watch carefully, you might see the shift in a person's demeanor as they reach for the armrest. A slight relief in the tension of their body, a gentle shift from standing to sitting. A connection, no matter how small, that makes the time spent on the bench a little easier. And so the armrest becomes part of the experience. You might not think much of it, but in the collective quiet of the day, this small touch happens countless times. You could count them, if you wanted to. Each gentle press, each fleeting graze, marks the passage of time, an unnoticed routine. But even in its invisibility, the armrest remains constant. Maybe you'll notice it tomorrow, or maybe you never will, but it's there, waiting. Each touch, like the small moments that make up our lives, quietly and purposefully unnoticed. The armrest doesn't ask for attention, but it never really leaves. The soft click of keys. Each tap lingers in the air for a brief moment, almost unnoticed. Some keyboards are sharper, others quieter, but the rhythm they create is unmistakable. How many times have your fingers flown across the keys faster than you thought possible, as if the words were waiting to be born? Still, there's something about the font on the screen, how it seems to shape itself around your thoughts, drawing your fingers to strike with a particular ease. It isn't just about the words, it's the way those words appear. Some fonts feel lighter, others heavier. The shapes invite or demand action. Even now, the font before you can subtly influence the speed at which you type. In the quiet moments when you've typed enough to lose track of each individual keystroke, it becomes clear the font itself plays a quiet role. It's a small thing, yet it shifts the flow without you even realizing. Without much thought, we know that some fonts feel easier to navigate. Their shapes are clean, the lines smooth. Fonts like Arial, Helvetica, or Calibri invite your fingers to move with more grace, even though they are simple. It's like the keys themselves are just a little bit closer, a little bit more accessible. You might have felt it too, the sudden frustration when a text is rendered in a font that's more awkward, a font with thick strokes, or one that's too ornate. Your fingers hesitate, needing just a moment longer to process the next letter, the next tap. Even this slight pause builds into an overall delay. The distance between thought and word is real, but it's almost imperceptible. What if the fonts we use could shorten that gap? What if they could make the mind and the hand synchronize more deeply? It's not just the act of typing that's influenced, but how easily your brain connects with the form before it. If you look closely, the way the font is built, the weight of each letter, the width, the angle, tells you something about how you should type. Straight lines versus curves. Strokes that open and close, or ones that remain rigid. These patterns have a rhythm, a tempo of their own, that subtly directs your movement. A micro-observation shows itself. You don't think about it, but your fingers move with precision when the font is made for it. Fonts with curves, like Times New Roman or Georgia, demand more deliberate movements, each tap more focused, more careful. Their serif-heavy design keeps the fingers from flowing too fast. The more forgiving fonts, on the other hand, like Verdana or Tahoma, seem to open the door wider. The space between letters, the smaller serifs, these fonts encourage speed, allowing for a quicker return to thought. They support the natural rhythm of typing, the ebb and flow, pushing you forward rather than slowing you down. The curious part is how all of this remains unspoken. Fonts don't announce themselves as tools, but they work. They do something subtle to our mental state, and you might not notice it until you sit down to type, for long stretches, your fingers finding a natural rhythm without much effort. Even the layout of letters within a font can affect your typing habits. Some fonts are spaced widely, others are tighter. When the letters are spread apart, your fingers have to travel farther, and each tap becomes a bit of a stretch. That stretch is an extra millisecond, but across hundreds of words, it begins to add up. In contrast, fonts with tighter spacing push your fingers together. This can lead to a smoother, more compact rhythm, increasing typing speed by reducing the distance between each stroke. A small thing, but it makes the difference when you're moving quickly through a document or racing against the clock. A still moment, unnoticed by most. If you were to sit and type in different fonts, you might not feel the difference immediately. But after a few minutes, the fingers begin to speak a little faster, a little smoother, with the fonts that align with your natural movement. This rhythm is not an accident. Each font makes its own call. Some fonts gently ask for precision, making you pause to consider each character. Others open up space for speed, suggesting that you don't need to linger on each word. It's as if the font itself carries a suggestion on how fast your mind and fingers should meet. When you think back to your earliest typing lessons, the fonts used were likely simple and clear, designed for learning, not speed. Over time, as you've become more accustomed to the rhythm of the keyboard, your choices have expanded. You've started to pick fonts that make you type faster, more effortlessly. Maybe you've used a font just for a moment and noticed how quickly the words formed. The small tweaks in design that allowed you to glide over the keys. And perhaps you found yourself moving even faster as the font invited you to keep pace, never slowing you down. It felt, in a way, like it was made for you. The way fonts can shape our typing habits remains an invisible constant. As you glance at the letters you type, it's not always obvious that the shapes themselves have an effect. But the rhythm they create is felt, and it stays with you. Maybe you'll notice it tomorrow, or maybe you never will. The font simply waits, quiet, unchanged. The button. It's an odd thing, isn't it? Small, simple, yet somehow it controls so much. Pressed beneath the fingers, it makes things happen. A switch, a door, a device. You've likely pressed one today, maybe without even thinking, and when you did, it was probably round. There's something about that smooth, familiar curve. It doesn't challenge you, it invites you. A circle is gentle, like the motion of a hand reaching out, like a soft invitation. Imagine the sharp angles of a square button beneath your thumb. How it feels. Notice the difference in the way your hand reacts. Still, it's subtle. The choice of round buttons over square ones isn't shouted at you. It's the quiet preference that sneaks into everyday life. You won't see signs on the wall saying round is better, but somehow, without much thought, it becomes the default. Round buttons are everywhere, though they don't demand attention. Without much thought, we've come to expect them in nearly every place. Phones, remotes, computers, all designed to fit the curve of the hand, to flow with the natural gestures of our fingers. It's as though they're designed to be pressed without friction, smooth and seamless in their subtle purpose. The simplicity of it all. In the late 1800s, buttons started to move away from their old-fashioned utilitarian forms. Designers began experimenting, trying to make buttons not only functional, but something you wanted to touch. When buttons became decorative as well as functional, the round ones seemed to emerge first. There's no real surprise there. The circle is the most natural shape, after all. It's in everything: the sun, the moon, the horizon that stretches out endlessly. It feels complete, like a finished thought. A square, on the other hand, feels trapped, confined within its sharp edges. It doesn't flow in the same way, doesn't invite the same gentleness. Even now, our brain's subconscious preference for roundness affects us. Researchers have shown that people are drawn to round shapes simply because they are easier to process. The eye moves smoothly around a circle, not interrupted by corners or angles. The brain doesn't have to work as hard, and that's something we rarely notice. If you think about it, there's an odd comfort in the design. It's as if the round button is giving you permission, asking you to press it without hesitation. The square one, though, there's an edge, a challenge. You feel it more, consciously or not, and it holds you back, even if only for a split second. Even in other places, like coins or plates, roundness feels right. The soft curve of a coin in your palm doesn't surprise you. It feels designed for you, made for your touch. The edges of a square coin, though, would seem jarring. It would cut against the natural flow of how you move, how you hold things. Without much thought, people have learned to trust the curve. It's easier, familiar. You don't have to figure out how to press it, or whether it's positioned the right way. Round buttons, whether on the remote, the phone, or the elevator panel, seem to anticipate your fingers' movements. They feel instinctual. In contrast, the square button forces your mind to calculate. It's not just about finding it with your thumb, it's about knowing which corner to press, which side to follow. It's a minor friction, but a friction nonetheless. We don't like friction. It slows us down. We choose smoothness when we can. And maybe it's not just convenience that makes round buttons feel better. Maybe it's a deeper, older connection. The circle represents unity and wholeness. It's a shape that feels finished, not incomplete. A square with its sharp corners can feel like it's pulling you in too many directions at once, like it's unfinished. The next time you press a button, think about how it feels. Press the round one. Notice the soft click beneath your fingertip, the way your finger falls into the shape of it. It's not a decision you make, but one that's been subtly made for you. The roundness, the ease, it's almost like a gesture from the past. Maybe you'll notice this more tomorrow, maybe not, but when you do, when your thumb falls onto that curve, you'll feel it. That small, quiet satisfaction of knowing the button was made to fit your hand. That moment, that simple action, will be perfect in its own way, just like the shape of it. There's no need to make it more than it is.
It simply exists.
Round, familiar, and waiting for your touch. You've probably seen it, a crayon box nestled in the corner of a desk drawer where the faint scent of wax still lingers, the soft click of its lid, the smooth glide of each vibrant color across paper. But beyond the drawings and doodles, there's something else, something unnoticed. How do we choose which crayon to use? The moment you hold that bright wax stick, there's an instinct, a subtle preference. You might pick the red one, or the blue, but do you ever wonder why? The answer isn't as simple as just liking the color. For decades, researchers have quietly studied the psychology behind crayon preferences. It's a curiosity woven into our everyday lives, something that unfolds without much thought. We often think that children choose crayons based on instinct, but there's a deeper logic, a pattern, almost unseen, influencing those decisions. Still, the most interesting thing isn't just the colors themselves, it's the names. Names that seem so random, yet they pull at something in us. Burnt sienna, radical red, jazzberry jam. There's a strange comfort in how each one feels, as though the crayon's name is an invitation to something more than just its pigment. Take Blue Moon. Doesn't it sound peaceful, almost serene? And yet it's just a crayon, isn't it? Still, there's something in that name that makes us think of a quiet evening. The name isn't a simple label. It's a suggestion, an evocation of a mood. It changes the way we look at it. Even now, if you were to hold Blue Moon, you'd notice something about its texture, a smoothness to the wax that invites you to color in a way that feels right. Something about its name, its quiet suggestion, makes you wonder if crayons are more than just toys. What do they really offer us? A recent study analyzed the naming preferences of crayon colors and found something curious. When presented with names like Midnight Blue versus Royal Blue, participants chose differently. But what's even more fascinating is that Midnight Blue evoked a certain sense of calm, while Royal Blue felt bolder, more powerful. We feel these names before we even know we do. There's a certain allure in how names influence us. The names we use to describe these simple objects, they seem almost arbitrary at times. But when you look deeper, they aren't. They shape our understanding of color, of meaning, of our very experience of the world. Macaroni and cheese might seem frivolous, but it makes us smile. Without much thought, we assign meaning to these colors. Names like Fuzzy Wuzzy Brown don't just describe, they evoke a feeling. They connect us to something we might not have noticed before. Something beyond the paper and wax, an invisible thread linking us to our childhoods, to nostalgia, to play. If you think about it, even the simple act of opening a crayon box is an act of immersion. The process is instinctive, automatic. We grab the crayon, we scribble, and yet we're being guided by a deeper current, a pull, subtle yet powerful, shaped by years of naming and the emotions those names bring. We could have a crayon called just green, but no, we have asparagus and sea green. Perhaps it's the subtlety of the names that makes them work. The fact that they don't just tell us what the color is, but suggest what the color feels like. Sea green isn't just green, it's something more. The naming conventions behind crayons are no accident. They're not random. There's a deliberate dance happening behind the scenes. The colors are carefully considered, chosen for the way they'll be perceived. A deep blue might be midnight blue in one brand and ocean breeze in another. It's about pulling the right emotional string. Even the names we don't question are carefully constructed. Yellow seems simple enough. But what about dandelion? There's something about that name that makes you think of childhood walks, of soft winds of spring. It's not just yellow, it's an experience, a fleeting moment frozen in time. As you look at the crayon in your hand, it's easy to forget the layers at play. The tiny subtle forces working to guide you, shaping not just your choice, but your entire interaction with the object. Crayons are more than what they seem. They are a bridge between our present and the past, and so when you sit there choosing colors, perhaps you'll think twice. Will it be blush or carnation pink? And as the color flows across the paper, you'll be aware of the invisible dance between name and hue, a pull that's always there, guiding your hand with the softest of nudges. Maybe tomorrow you'll choose differently, or maybe you won't. It doesn't matter, the names wait, quietly in the box. They don't demand, but they are always there like whispers of something deeper. Something that once noticed never quite leaves, and as the colors fade from the page, so too does the thought of their names. Maybe you'll pick them up again, or maybe they'll stay tucked away. In the end, it doesn't ask for attention, but it never really leaves. There's a shift in the air when a picture frame hangs just a little off-center. You don't notice it at first, it's subtle, a small unevenness, but as the seconds pass, something about it quietly begins to pull at you. A little nudge in the corner of your mind. Still, you don't act immediately. It lingers in the background, like a dull hum you can't ignore. You may glance at it, perhaps even look away, but the crookedness doesn't disappear. It's there, somewhere between your thoughts, in the space where order is expected, but not quite delivered. Even now, you may have felt it before, when the edges of the frame don't align, when the tilt of the picture disrupts the steady rhythm of the room. Your eyes won't fixate on it, but something about it feels wrong. It doesn't demand attention, but your brain insists that it shouldn't stay that way. Without much thought, you might shift your gaze again, but the crookedness hasn't softened. It still tugs, subtle yet firm, like a thread you can't quite pull free. It's a small thing, an imperfection that is hardly a problem, yet in that moment, the picture frame becomes a strange focal point. You walk by it, not intending to do anything about it, but the frame still catches your eye. Just enough for your mind to register that it's off, but not enough to demand a full action. It feels like an unfinished note in a song that lingers long after the music has stopped. You might wonder, why does it matter? Why does it affect us, this slight misalignment? It's not loud or glaring. It doesn't scream for attention. And yet, there's a constant itch in the back of your head, a tiny disturbance you can't seem to shake. It's like the picture frame itself is quietly waiting for something to fix it. Still, you resist the urge to reach up and straighten it. It's too small, too insignificant. Maybe you think that in a moment you'll forget about it. but the angle remains, like a small stone in your shoe that you can't seem to take out. You wonder, if you left it, would you forget? Even now the room feels different, somehow. The walls, the furniture, they're not changed, but something is missing. It's as if the space is just a little less comfortable, a little more uneasy, because of the frame's quiet defiance of order. It's nothing, yet it's everything in its own way. The longer you sit with it, the more it becomes part of the landscape, part of the room's quiet pulse. You begin to wonder if it even matters at all. Will anyone else notice? Maybe it's only you who sees the shift, but there it is, in the corner of your awareness, unchanged. It's the same thought each time. Straightening it would bring back the calm. It's the simple act of restoring balance, of bringing something back to where it belongs. Not because it's broken, but because its crookedness has become something of a secret. A silent imperfection in the corner of your home. Still, you let it be. You don't act. The frame remains off-center, and life continues. It might go unnoticed by others, yet it stays with you, tucked away like a quiet thought. You wonder if it will always be there, an echo of something that doesn't belong, but somehow feels permanent. Without much thought, you pass by again. And for a second, you almost forget. The frame's crookedness has slipped into the background, become part of the room's texture. Maybe it's a part of you now, as much as it is part of the space. You're no longer sure which one is more important. Even now, you can hear the silence, and in that silence, the frame sways gently in its imperfection. It never asks for attention, but it always has a presence, like a ripple that doesn't break the surface, but lingers beneath it. You wonder if, someday, you'll finally fix it, or perhaps it will stay there, forever tilted. You'll walk by, and it will still be crooked, and you'll remember how it used to bother you. Or maybe it never did. Maybe it was always meant to be this way. The thought simply fades. Maybe you'll notice it tomorrow, or maybe you never will. It waits, quietly unchanged. The click of a mouse, the sharpness of your focus, it's all interrupted by the sudden appearance, a banner, a pop-up, a bright box demanding your attention. It doesn't belong, but it waits. For a moment everything you were doing is muted. There's no escape, only a box. Still, you know it's coming. It always does. In between your search results, after every second scroll, it lingers, silently calculating your frustration. A small delay, an unneeded interruption. Maybe just long enough to ask, would you like to sign up for this newsletter? And if you ignore it, it will grow. You've seen the algorithms. They know, a slight tug of your mouse, and it will expand, occupying more space, louder now. Suddenly, you wonder what exactly is this thing doing here? What does it want from you? For that brief moment, it owns your attention, and you didn't ask for it. Even now it might pop up, a new window, a new ad that tries to tempt your click. Just one more little box to dismiss, one more opportunity to bring you back. It's been calculated, this frustration. How long you'll stay distracted, how much you'll ignore. Every action has been studied. How many times have you closed it? You don't even remember. It has become second nature. Your hand moves instinctively, scrolling to avoid the intrusion, but it's always there, lurking. A tiny barrier between you and whatever you're trying to do, disrupting the flow, forcing a brief pause that's all too familiar. Without much thought, you may have noticed that some pop-ups never really go away. They change shape, alter colors, move across the screen differently, but they always return. The creators know what they're doing. Their sole purpose is to calculate the exact moment of your irritation, to nudge you just enough to make a decision. There's a rhythm to it, a soft pulse. First, a gentle suggestion. Then, as your focus narrows, the pop-up grows, shifts, spreads. It knows exactly when to appear, when to vanish. You might feel relief when it disappears, but it always comes back, like an uninvited guest that simply refuses to leave. A small detail, easily overlooked, but if you listen long enough, it's everywhere. Every corner of the internet holds its own set of calculations: when you'll give in, when you'll click, when you'll linger. This dance of frustration, and it's never random. It's always planned. Each delay, a part of the game. You've experienced it so many times that you can predict it. Maybe you even anticipate it, knowing when it'll appear, when it'll ask. Maybe this is what makes it so powerful. It's the control it exerts without you even realizing. You know it's a distraction, but it's still there, pulling you in again. Still, you're aware of it, but you still click through. A second glance, a hasty dismiss, and it's gone. But there it is again. The next site, the next pop-up. It's subtle, creeping into your habits. And despite all the clever design to frustrate, to delay, it's simply become another part of the digital routine. Even the shape of it feels familiar now, doesn't it? The box that springs to life, flashing for just a moment, taking a tiny bit more of your focus than it deserves. But over time, it's less intrusive, less powerful. It fades into the background, like a noise you can't ignore, but have learned to live with. You could count the number of pop-ups you've seen today. Maybe you've already dismissed 10 or 20. And in that moment, a thought drifts by: how many of these have you actually engaged with? How many have truly made you pause? They still come, uninvited, but less potent. They no longer command your attention like they once did. A shift happens, but it's quiet. The frustration remains, but it becomes a part of the experience. Slowly, incrementally, you stop reacting. You don't even see the pop-up, just as you don't notice the hum of the refrigerator anymore. It's always there, and that is the trick, isn't it? Even now, you could look, and the pop-ups will still be there. They may be different, better, perhaps more tailored to you, but the dance is the same. It will always return, never truly gone. Maybe one day, it will evolve into something else entirely, but for now, it lingers. A constant familiar presence. It simply waits, quiet, unchanged. Have you ever caught yourself staring at a vending machine? A simple glass window, a row of brightly colored snacks. Sometimes you don't even know what you're looking for, just the subtle pull of choice. The machine hums quietly, its fluorescent light flickering like a soft reminder. Still, you linger. The display is a mosaic of wrappers, all lined up like an odd kind of treasure chest. Each snack with a promise, each one with a secret. It's the sort of thing you've seen 1,000 times before, but now, in this moment, it seems like a riddle. The buttons glow. Your fingers hover, undecided. The familiar sight of a bag of chips, the crisp edges of candy bars, the shine of cold drinks. You might not even be hungry. Not really. There's something else going on, the dance between desire and indecision. It's a quiet ritual, almost instinctual. Without much thought, you might start to feel the passing of time. Maybe a few minutes slip by, but it's hard to say exactly how many. You've been standing here longer than you realized, but the vending machine doesn't hurry. It's still. It knows how to wait. People do this often. This pause, this moment of contemplation in front of a machine that could in an instant fulfill a desire. But why is it that we stand there unmoving for so long? It isn't just about the food, not just about the transaction. It's about something else, something quieter. In the late 90s, a study was conducted. They measured how long people typically stand in front of vending machines, a curious thing to examine. The results were unexpected. Some individuals lingered for up to 10 minutes, staring at the options. 10 minutes, that's a full episode of a sitcom. The researchers weren't concerned about the snacks. They were more intrigued by what was happening in the mind, the stillness that took over. A vending machine, just a simple object, had the power to hold attention longer than most realize. A strange kind of engagement happens when people stare, lost in the choices. You might have felt it, that moment where the machine seems almost alive. The long silent pause, with only the soft hum of its inner workings as a companion. It's a subtle experience, one that lingers without you noticing it. Time flows differently in front of the glass. The machine never hurries you. Even now when you walk past a vending machine, there's a temptation to glance. Maybe you don't even want anything inside, but something about the way the items are lined up, the light reflecting off the plastic, draws you in. It's as if the machine is offering a secret that only you can understand. And yet it's not always clear why we stop, why we gaze for so long. Maybe it's a moment of silence in the middle of a busy day. The vending machine is a small, quiet world, standing still in a world that constantly moves. A pause, a space for your mind to wander, even if it's just for a minute. Sometimes you'll see others in front of the machine, doing the same thing. They're just standing there, with no real sense of urgency, no real rush. Maybe they're thinking, or maybe their thoughts are drifting somewhere else. The machine offers a moment to simply be without expectations, without much thought. Your gaze might shift from one snack to another. There's the candy bar, then the bag of pretzels, that bottle of soda. The choice is small, but the deliberation is real, and so you wait. The longer you look, the more the machine becomes a puzzle. What to pick? What to leave behind? The question seems simple, but it's not. The machine doesn't care. It doesn't rush you. It doesn't hurry the decision. The act of choosing is what holds you. Time feels stretched, even though it's fleeting. You're in the middle of something, but it's hard to say what. This curious pause in front of the vending machine often happens without us thinking about it. Still, we do it. It's like a forgotten behavior we fall into without realizing. Perhaps we've all stood there, caught in a trance of choices, wondering about the path we're about to take. It's the small decisions that in some way anchor us. Maybe tomorrow you'll find yourself in front of a vending machine again. The same hum, the same lights. The choices will be the same, but you'll stop, just like before. Not to choose right away, but to stand in that quiet space. The machine waits, and maybe you do too. The hum fades, but the stillness remains. The machine doesn't ask for attention, but it never really leaves. There's a quiet rhythm to the way the tape unwinds. You watch it peel slowly from its roll, a thin strip of plastic curling back on itself. It doesn't stop until you've pulled enough. Then the slight tension in your fingers fades, replaced by a soft silence. That moment, just before you cut the tape, feels familiar, like an unnoticed small victory. But the path to that moment is often a little more intricate than you might realize. Even now, when you hold the end of a fresh roll, it's not immediately clear where it begins. You can sense it, maybe, tucked under the first edge, nearly invisible, but it's not easy to find. There's something almost elusive about that tiny flap, hidden underneath the paper or plastic covering. Still, when you do finally catch it, after a few distracted moments of tugging at the smooth surface, it feels like a discovery, something mundane, yet deeply satisfying. The tape is eager to cooperate then, letting itself be peeled, freed from its roll. But even with the simplest task, the steps never seem entirely predictable. Without much thought, you begin your task. You hold the end and pull, hearing the tape's soft crinkle as it unfurls, each movement smooth and uninterrupted. The roll turns beneath your fingers. The longer it spins, the less it feels like a smooth unraveling. There's a shift, like a subtle resistance, each pull of tape a little tighter, the roll a little thinner. You begin to notice something odd, the way the tape starts to lengthen. It isn't a simple linear path, is it? The tape spins and coasts around itself, layers stacking, turning into a web of quiet movement. Each pull seems to go a little further than the last, one moment small, the next larger, stretching away with the same simple, sticky promise. You watch it pull. The tape seems to stretch into the air, like a ribbon at the mercy of its own tension. A small effort for you, but somehow, the amount of tape unspooling seems greater with each flick of your wrist. The roll feels lighter, more like an idea than a thing. Something that started tightly packed is now unraveling, reaching for something you can't quite see yet. Even in the act, there's a subtle awareness growing, just how many steps it takes to reach the end, how many pulls. Each time you pull the tape, it seems like just a little more is left behind. The roll seems endless in its own way, yet you know with quiet certainty that it must end at some point. But where? With each motion, the rhythm grows. The tape finds its pattern, wrapping itself into loops, each one nestled into the last, curling tighter. Your fingers flick and tug, but it's the tape itself that decides the pace, deciding for you how much will remain. Each loop seems to pull back a little more, stretching the moment until you realize each stretch of tape is just a step toward the finish. And then, perhaps without warning, you realize that the tape has thinned out. You hold the end, unsure if it will tear or keep spinning. Each moment feels like a quiet negotiation between effort and ease. It's not quite the end, but it's nearing. You feel it in the tension. The tape's grip on the roll is finally giving way. You watch it unravel, the layers shedding, slowly revealing the core. It's as though the roll itself knows it is running out of purpose, and it gives up little by little, not in haste, but with a strange final patience. When the end finally comes, it doesn't seem like a distinct moment, but more of a soft shift. It happens quietly, without much notice. The tape is simply gone. The roll stands empty, almost apologetic in its simplicity. But the space left behind is full. Somehow, the moment of unrolling, stretching, and unwinding has passed, leaving you with only the faintest memory of what you were doing. Maybe you'll notice it again next time. Or maybe not, but even now as the last strip sits in your hand, you'll remember how it felt, that quiet expectation of how many steps it takes to find the end of a roll of tape. It never seems as simple as you thought. And then just like that, it waits, still and complete. There's something odd about the way a flickering light doesn't seem to stop. It's almost a hum, a repetition of motion that doesn't quite fit with the rest of the world. The bulb pulses like a heartbeat you can't ignore, pulling at the edges of your attention. Still, you might not notice it at first. The flicker is subtle, a brief flash. It doesn't always catch your eye. Yet, as it continues, you might feel a slight tightening in your head. The moment it happens again, it's almost as if the light is affecting something deeper than just the air in the room. At first, there's a slight disorientation. You know that it's happening, but you can't always remember when. Time stretches in odd ways, and you might find yourself pausing mid-thought, as though something slipped through the cracks of your mind. The light doesn't stop. It's there, but not entirely. You might feel the shift before you even realize what's happening. A kind of haze that settles over the way you process the world. Your thoughts, once smooth, seem to trip over themselves. Ideas don't arrive quite as quickly. You move through your day with a dull edge, and the flicker, the persistent flicker, remains in the background, unnoticed, yet deeply present. Even now, it might still be there. The subtle disruption, now embedded in the way your brain works. The human brain is an odd thing. It's built to process an astounding amount of information at once. But in this case, it's receiving more than it can easily filter. The flicker creates an imbalance, a ripple in your otherwise steady stream of thoughts. It might not be obvious at first, but eventually, you start to wonder if you can concentrate as easily as you used to. Perhaps you find it harder to focus. Perhaps the words that seem to come so naturally now have a slight delay. It's not that you're any less capable. It's the light, the flickering. Without much thought, you might begin to feel an odd tension in your neck, or the back of your eyes might hurt more than usual. It's as if something is working just a little too hard. Something in the process has become strained. Your brain has been tasked with constantly recalibrating to accommodate the unnatural rhythm of the light. The science behind it is simple. Your brain is trying to make sense of the rhythm, even if it doesn't fully understand it. Fluorescent lights flicker at a frequency so high that it's invisible to the naked eye. And yet your brain registers it. It becomes a distraction your mind can't ignore, though you can't pinpoint it exactly. In an office, in a classroom, or in a store, wherever it is, the light is there, repeating itself, endlessly. Each flash like a faint tap on your shoulder that says, "I'm here, pay attention." Even when you're not focused on it, your brain continues to process the flickering, like a constant hum beneath your thoughts. And slowly over time, it erodes the smooth flow of your cognitive process. Without much thought, you might begin to feel a strange weariness and exhaustion that lingers even after a full day's rest. It's not the work, it's the constant low-level strain. Your eyes, your head, your mind, they're all subtly working to adjust. The flicker might not cause you to see things differently, but it does make the world feel slightly off. You might begin to wonder why, after hours beneath that pale flickering glow, you feel strangely tired or even irritable. The flicker has a way of draining the subtle energy reserves your mind needs to stay sharp. The effect, while not obvious at first, grows like a shadow in the back of your thoughts, lingering longer than you'd like. Even now in a room with a flickering light, you might find yourself doing something you've never noticed before, adjusting your gaze. It's as if your brain is trying to avoid the light, not by consciously looking away, but by narrowing your focus. Avoiding the mental strain it causes by narrowing the scope of your awareness, and still it continues. The flicker, almost imperceptible, remains a part of your environment. It's not the light itself that's the problem, it's the way your mind reacts to it. Over time, the constant invisible pulse starts to leave its mark. It begins to wear on you, not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, persistent manner. It doesn't seem to ask for your attention, yet it takes it. The brain, always on the lookout for patterns, can't ignore the flicker. Even while you work, the light is there pulling at the edges of your concentration. It's as if, without you realizing it, your thoughts are always adjusting to this small, constant disturbance, and still, even in the quiet moments, you might feel it, that little shift, that little change. The flickering light might not ever really stop. It waits, and your brain, always processing, always adjusting, doesn't quite let go. It simply waits, quiet, unchanged. The faint squeak of the chair shifts your attention. It's almost a whisper at first, subtle, unnoticed. But then it comes again, a little louder this time. The sound seems to pull at the edges of your focus, a soft interruption in the rhythm of your thoughts. Still, you try to ignore it. You settle deeper into the chair, adjusting slightly, hoping it will stop. But there it is again, a sharp, high-pitched squeal as you shift. The sound lingers longer than it should, hanging in the air, almost demanding attention, even as you try to push it away. Even now the noise persists. You've grown used to it over the past few minutes. Each squeak is different, but they all carry the same weight, a slight disturbance, a vibration in your focus. You think you can block it out, but it keeps returning, like an itch you can't scratch. Without much thought, your mind drifts to the chair itself. Why is it squeaking? The mystery lingers there, settling in the background of your thoughts. It's a simple thing, really, but the way it invades your space is anything but. There's no escaping the sound, only enduring it. At some point, you stop trying to ignore it. The squeak becomes a part of the room, woven into the background of your work. It's almost comforting, like the ticking of a distant clock or the hum of a refrigerator. Yet it's different, a reminder that focus can be fragile. The squeak comes again. You stop for a moment, wondering if it's louder now, or if it just seems that way. It cuts through the silence, like a thread pulled from fabric. Just when you begin to get used to it, it shifts in pitch, a little more piercing, pulling at your concentration once again. There's a subtle shift in your energy. The task in front of you doesn't seem as clear, doesn't seem to matter as much. The chair is pulling at your awareness. Bit by bit, you can almost feel yourself being pulled away, your thoughts scattering like leaves in the wind. But the work remains, demanding a return. You try again to focus, but the squeak lingers in your mind like a constant nudge. It's as if every shift in the chair makes the task ahead seem a little harder, the words on the page a little more distant. It's not a loud noise, but somehow it feels relentless. The way it punctuates the silence makes the room feel smaller, the air heavier. It becomes a part of the rhythm of the day, a tiny but persistent companion in every movement, every shift, every glance at the clock. As you settle back again, adjusting your posture, the squeak comes once more, a tiny protest, an objection to stillness. The longer it continues, the more it seems to stretch out time, bending it, turning what once felt like a simple task into something needing more effort. Focus, it seems, can be elusive. Even now, as you sit, the sound continues. Each squeak is a reminder of something, a slight imbalance in the chair, a loose bolt perhaps, or maybe just the weight of your thoughts pressing down, shifting everything just slightly. You wonder how much of your focus is really here, how much has slipped away. Without much thought, you begin to move more carefully, aware of the chair now, trying to make it stop without thinking about it. But the more you try, the more it seems to come. It's no longer just a chair, no longer just a sound. It's a reflection of how easily concentration can fray. And yet, it's still there. The squeak. It's not enough to interrupt, but just enough to keep the edges of your awareness sharp. You can almost feel the space between each squeak, as if time itself slows with each one, and with every passing minute, it seems to grow harder to focus, harder to maintain the same flow. A brief pause in the room, and then, there it is again. A squeak, sharp and unmistakable. It drifts through the air like a breeze, catching the attention of your mind before it can fully settle back. The work remains, yes, but your focus has been changed. It's more fragile now, slipping away like sand through your fingers. Maybe tomorrow it won't be the same. Or maybe it will be. Perhaps the squeak will persist, carrying its quiet rhythm into another day, another moment of your attention. But for now, it simply waits, a soft reminder that sometimes the smallest things can pull you out of yourself. It doesn't ask for attention, but it never really leaves. It's that moment, the one where you reach for the door confident, sure. Your hand wraps around the handle, and then you pull, but something's off. It's not moving. You try again. A second pull. Still nothing. The moment stretches as you step back, scanning the door for a sign, anything. Still, the door stands there, indifferent, as if toying with you. And then you see it. A small quiet sign that was almost invisible before. Push asterisk. That word sits there, almost apologetic, as if it knew you would make the mistake, as if it had been waiting for you to misread it. Even now, after so many years of rushing through buildings, this small simple mistake still happens. A push door mistaken for a pull. A pull door mistaken for a push. It's the kind of mistake that doesn't feel important. In the rush of the day, it's just one more minor inconvenience. But there's something quietly fascinating about how often it occurs. Without much thought, we all assume we know the way doors work. We push, we pull, without considering the momentary disorientation that comes with it. It's a simple task, one we repeat endlessly, and yet it is one of the most common mistakes made in public spaces. A small moment of confusion, repeated again and again. The ratio of push to pull mistakes doesn't seem to change, even when we try to be more aware. It's almost as if there's a certain rhythm to it, an unnoticed pattern we follow without thinking. Push, pull, misstep, repeat. A dance we do every day, without ever questioning why. In fact, some researchers have even found that certain architectural designs make the mistakes more likely. A door that's too narrow, a handle placed too high. These small details, invisible to most, subtly alter our sense of what should happen. The door becomes a puzzle, and the solution slips just out of reach. Still, there's something oddly soothing about this small mistake, this quiet misstep in the rhythm of the day. It's not a disaster, just a momentary pause, a brief break in the flow of things. It doesn't demand much. A soft chuckle, a shift in body language, and then we move on. Forgotten almost instantly. Even now, in the vast labyrinth of public buildings, the ratio of mistakes remains constant. Whether it's an office building, a hospital, or a school, the doors remain a silent witness to our daily misjudgments. We all play the same game, caught in the same confusion, over and over, and yet nothing changes, and so we return to the door. This time, we're certain of what it wants. Push, not pull, but it's not as simple as that. There's always that brief hesitation, that second of doubt. What if this one is different? What if this time we're wrong again? A quiet hesitation, a moment of vulnerability. In a way, the door has become a symbol, a quiet, overlooked part of our day, filled with minor missteps that never seem to end. Each time we approach, there's that soft decision to make, and we don't always get it right. But the rhythm persists, no matter how often we falter. Without thinking, we continue. Push, pull, misstep. It's a pattern we'll never really break. The door doesn't ask for anything more than to be opened. But it doesn't matter if we get it right, because the next door is always waiting, ready for the next round of mistakes. Maybe we'll notice the sign next time. Maybe we'll read it carefully, even though we know we won't. The door will always be there, waiting for us to misread it again, to repeat the small mistake. And in that moment, there's no real harm, no real consequence, just the quiet mistake of 1,000 doors. And yet there's something hypnotic about it, something soothing in the way we repeat it. Each mistake is familiar, comforting in its predictability, a soft rhythm in the chaos of the day. A mistake that isn't really a mistake, but a simple, inevitable part of life. Tomorrow, we'll face it again, with the same quiet uncertainty. We'll reach for the door and without much thought, we'll make the same mistake. The cycle will begin anew, just as it always has, without question, without hesitation. And somehow, it's enough. It doesn't ask for attention, but it never really leaves. The soft hum of the elevator fills the space, the doors closing with a quiet click, a pause, then a gentle lurch as the elevator ascends. A brief moment, a break in the flow of time, but you might notice it then, those few subtle shifts in the way people stand, moving ever so slightly. Still, there is no obvious reason for it. The elevator is a small space, but the shuffle happens almost instinctively, as if people are compelled to adjust themselves, to find a new balance, as the elevator begins its slow journey. Without much thought, you might shift your weight too, just like everyone else. There's a quiet choreography in this moment. The shuffle isn't abrupt or hurried, it's small, a step here, a shift there. The kind of movement that's just enough to feel like you're more comfortable, more stable, even when you don't really need to move. You've felt it before, haven't you? Maybe it happens when the elevator starts to move, or maybe it happens when the doors open. It could be a habit, a micro-response. People instinctively adjust their stance, shifting weight from one foot to the other, almost like an invisible rhythm that takes over. Even now you might feel yourself doing it. Without thinking. It's a strange, almost unconscious thing. When you step into an elevator, you know exactly how to behave, even if you've never been taught. It's as if you're aware, on some level, that the very nature of being inside this small metal box demands a certain kind of fluidity, a subtle dance of balance. The shuffle doesn't just happen when the elevator is moving, though it happens when you're waiting, when the doors are open and nothing seems to be changing. Even then, your feet might tap lightly, or you shift your weight. It's as if the space itself is too confined for stillness, a quiet pressure to fill the air with movement. There's something about that small enclosed space that triggers this instinctive shift. You don't need to think about it. You just feel the need to adjust, to move, to make yourself more comfortable. It's a pattern that's been repeated by so many, so often, that it has become part of the experience, almost a reflex. Even now you can picture it, someone shifting their stance, stepping slightly to the side. Not quite a full step, just a nudge. It's subtle, it's familiar, it's something you've seen countless times, in all those moments when you've shared an elevator ride with strangers, yet no one ever speaks about it. Still, you all do it. The phenomenon has been studied. Researchers have explored why this small shuffle happens. They've found that it's a response to the motion of the elevator. Yes, but it's also about personal space. The closer we are to others, the more likely we are to move, to make ourselves just a little bit more comfortable in the shared proximity. Without much thought, you adjust again. You might not even notice it. But researchers suggest this shuffle is rooted in our need for spatial awareness, especially in confined spaces. It's a tiny readjustment, a way to claim some personal space, even when you're physically unable to move much. And yet there's another layer to it. Some studies suggest that the shuffle is also a subconscious way of coping with the slight discomfort that can come with being in an enclosed space, the confined air, the close proximity. It's natural, this little shuffle, a way of easing the tension that might quietly rise when you're trapped in a small moving box. Even now, as you stand in an elevator, you might feel the need to shift, even though you're perfectly still. The shuffle isn't necessarily about discomfort, it's about self-regulation, a way to manage the small but persistent strain of being in a space where every movement is shared, a quiet, unspoken agreement with everyone else inside. It's fascinating, isn't it? How something so subtle, so seemingly trivial, happens without effort, without awareness. Yet it's repeated across the world, across countless elevator rides. An invisible pattern that we follow, like an unspoken rule, all without ever truly noticing. And in that, it feels almost comforting. Perhaps, if you thought about it long enough, you could wonder about all the other small patterns we follow without noticing. The way we adjust our posture when we're waiting in line, the way we subtly shift our weight when seated next to someone. Small things, quiet things, yet all of them important in their own way. In the end, the shuffle doesn't really ask for anything. It simply exists, a quiet response to a situation that requires no thinking, only instinct. A small adjustment, something so ingrained that it seems part of the very fabric of the moment. And after the doors open, after the shuffle, we all move on. It doesn't demand attention, but it lingers in the background, shaping the moments we don't think to notice. And in those tiny adjustments, the shuffle lives on, just waiting for the next ride. You've probably done it. The house feels just a little off, a touch too warm, a bit too chilly, and there you are, reaching for the thermostat. A simple tap of the button, a turn of the dial, but you know deep down, it's not going to do anything. Still, the gesture feels almost necessary, doesn't it? Like the simple act of adjusting something, even if it's futile, gives you control over the moment. You press it, and for a second there's this quiet hope, maybe this time it'll work, or maybe you just need to see it move. You might have done this without even thinking. It's a reflex, a motion that drifts from your hand to the dial as naturally as breathing. The temperature hasn't changed in hours. The system is still broken, and yet you find your fingers drawn to it, hoping for something that you know won't happen. Even now, if you think back to your home, to any room with a thermostat, you might imagine yourself standing there, eyes fixed on that little screen or dial, a small, almost imperceptible gesture as you tap or twist, as though the act of touching will magically shift the air around you. Why do we do it? Why do we touch things we know won't respond? Perhaps it's the need to feel like we're participating in something. An illusion of action. It's easier than sitting with the discomfort of the temperature, easier than accepting the stillness of a broken system. So, we reach out, without much thought. The motion becomes part of the rhythm of the room. You might do it again, just moments after the first, repeating the same small action, and somehow expecting a different result. There's something comforting in the act of trying, even when the outcome is predictable. Something soothing, in its futility. It might seem trivial, almost silly. And yet there's a quiet truth in it. The thermostat becomes a small ritual, a gesture of response to the world around us. The room doesn't get cooler or warmer, but the action itself provides a moment of connection. A moment where we have a hand in something, even if it's just for a second. In a way, it's like reaching for the TV remote when the screen is already off. The same quiet hope that the world will shift with the press of a button. The room won't cool down, but maybe, just maybe, you'll feel a little more in charge of the air around you. You've probably seen someone else do it. They stand in front of the thermostat with a similar glance, a slight hesitation before they adjust it. It's a small thing. A gesture that says, "I'm here, I'm paying attention." Perhaps we all do it for the same reason, to feel that we're actively participating in our space. This touch, This small change, even if it doesn't have any effect, tells us something about how we engage with the world. Even the most mechanical systems don't feel passive when we reach out. For a moment, we're not simply living in a space, we're influencing it. Even if that influence doesn't change anything, still, the impulse remains, even in the most functional homes with perfectly calibrated thermostats. It's part of a rhythm, a repetition that's woven into the mundane. You tap it, or twist it, even knowing it won't work. You might not need it to just the action itself carries a quiet reassurance. The oddity is, perhaps, in how universal this gesture is. People do it across homes, across cultures, whether it's a home in the middle of a city or a cabin in the mountains. There's a moment of quiet interaction with the thermostat. It's a shared act, simple, and almost too familiar. And even now, in homes where the temperature has settled just right, there's still a moment, a flicker of the hand reaching for the dial, just to check, to see if something has changed. Maybe at the very least, you can take comfort in the knowledge that you tried. A little movement in a still room. The system doesn't change, but the ritual continues. Even when the temperature remains the same, the act of touching the thermostat feels like something that brings you a little closer to the world around you. It is the smallest of gestures, but somehow it holds so much more meaning. Maybe tomorrow you'll do it again. Maybe you'll stand there for just a moment longer, testing the boundary between comfort and control. Or maybe you won't think about it at all. It's always there, waiting, quiet and unchanged. And perhaps that's enough. You hear it, that soft, almost imperceptible buzz. The notification, the text tone, it's like the air shifts just a little, a faint hum that travels through the room. Your fingers, without thought, reach for your phone. You know it's there, waiting for you. But for a moment, you pause. Still, you don't immediately respond. You glance at the screen, take in the words, maybe smile, maybe you're not sure how to reply, or maybe you're caught in the middle of something else, but that delay, it's there. Just a brief, almost imperceptible hesitation. You're aware of it, but it feels natural. Even now as you continue to scroll, the text tone echoes quietly in the background of your thoughts. The tiny gap between when you receive the message and when you reply, it's not much, but it lingers. It's as if something invisible, subtle, holds you back, just for a moment. You wonder, what is that pause? Without much thought, it's easy to ignore. But there it is, every time. The delay, that space between the ping and the response, it doesn't seem like much, but over time, it starts to feel almost deliberate, like a small hidden rhythm, a pattern to the way we communicate, without even noticing. Sometimes, you wonder if you're the only one who notices that pause before you respond. It feels almost like a soft breath before you speak. Not a hesitation exactly, but a deliberate choice to take just a moment. It's almost as if the mind needs time to properly form the answer. Even though you've seen the message, it waits. Still, no matter how many times it happens, you find yourself repeating the same thing. That slight delay before typing a response. It's automatic. You don't think about it. And yet, it's there, woven into every message. Every conversation feels like it exists in two parts, the ping and then that brief, quiet pause before everything else. You might call it a reflex, that delay, a second for your brain to process the words you've just read. Or maybe it's the feeling of having options, knowing you have the choice to say something, to choose the right words, but it always arrives, this moment before action. A soft space, a pause between. Even now, as you think back to the last time you text, you might recall that same pause, stretched out just a little longer than it should be. You read the message, and then wait, a brief moment before the reply escapes. You don't consciously decide it, but it's there. The reply will come, but not yet. Without much thought, the cycle repeats. It doesn't bother you, but the slight delay is there, present and constant. You tap the screen, your fingers moving more quickly now, but as you do, something about the delay feels intentional. like a quiet moment carved into the middle of an otherwise fast-paced conversation. That pause, like a quiet rhythm, almost feels necessary. In a world where everything moves so quickly, where responses are expected immediately, there's a small comfort in knowing that you can take that moment. It doesn't have to be long, just enough time to breathe, to make sure the words are right. Even now, as you think about it, you might notice it happening again. The pause. As if the act of responding needs its own space. It's almost as if our brains don't want to rush. Or perhaps, in those few seconds, we're deciding how much of ourselves to give, whether to let the words flow or withhold. Still, you find that you never quite escape it. It's as though, after the text tone, your mind creates a small world of its own for just a second. A world where responses take a little longer and time stretches just enough to make you feel like you have a moment of control in something that often feels out of your hands. And as you move on, it slips away. The pause, just as quietly as it appeared, it's gone again. But the cycle remains. The text tone sounds, and then that small beat, the gap between ping and reply. It's there in every conversation, like a heartbeat in the silence between words, something you can't help but feel. You never quite get used to it. The delay, that tiny space in time. It doesn't matter how many texts you send or receive. That quiet pause remains, just a fraction of time that feels like a breath, a moment of thought. After all, sometimes it takes just a second to decide what you want to say. Even now, as you return to whatever you were doing, the pause might still linger in the back of your mind. A small detail, but one that remains. Something that doesn't need to be explained, because it exists whether you notice it or not. It simply waits. Like all those quiet moments between words, and in the end, it's not the message that matters, but the pause. The brief, unnoticed gap between. It drifts in and out of every exchange, unremarkable but essential. It waits, quiet, unchanged. A soft click. You've heard it before, and it's a sound that seems to stay with you long after it's gone. That small moment when your hand turns the key, and you hear the lock fall into place, then, without much thought, you check it again, and again. Still, it's strange. Why check a locked door at all? The door is closed, the lock engaged, but somehow, something in you still reaches for it. Your fingers brush over the knob once more, maybe twice. It's a small motion, but it happens almost automatically, like a reflex you never fully notice. Even now, think of those doors you've locked. How many times did you check them? Not the first time, not when you were sure, but after, when your mind drifted elsewhere, only to snap back and pull you back to that door. That little nagging feeling that makes you return, just to be sure. Maybe you've even done it without thinking. Turned the handle once, twice, just to feel the smoothness of it under your hand. There's no real reason to check, but you do it anyway, like a forgotten habit that resides in your body, as though the lock might somehow come undone on its own, unnoticed. In the quiet stillness of your home, the sound of your hand turning the knob is oddly reassuring. It's an act that brings a sense of control, even when the world outside may feel anything but. The door is locked, secure, but still, you check it once more, as though the action itself could change something. It happens more often than we realize. Even when the door was already locked, we check. It's an instinctive motion, tied to the rhythm of our own need for safety, for certainty. The door doesn't move, the lock doesn't shift, but the action is repeated, like a small ritual we've grown so accustomed to. Without much thought, we check the door for reassurance, though we know it's secure. It's almost as if, by doing it once again, we're reaffirming our own sense of control, bringing us back to the present moment, ensuring that the world outside remains shut out for a while longer. There's something soothing about the motion, isn't there? A familiar gesture, quiet and small, yet it creates a moment of stillness, a pause in the everyday noise. As your fingers brush the handle, you might notice the faintest shift in your mind, a soft reassurance that things are exactly as they should be. For now, still, it's hard to explain. It isn't about the door, it's about what the door represents. Security, control, a boundary between you and the world outside. The lock isn't just a mechanism, it's a promise, a barrier that keeps the world at bay, even if only for a moment. And yet you check it again. Over time, this act becomes so automatic, it hardly registers. The door, the lock, the knob, they all become part of a dance, moving together without a single thought between them. Your hand turns, checks, reassures. And for a brief moment, you know that everything is as it should be. Maybe it's the stillness of the night that makes you do it more. When everything around you falls into a quiet rhythm, your thoughts begin to drift, and in that quiet, the little check of a locked door becomes a small anchor. It draws you back into the moment, grounding you in something familiar. Even now, consider the last time you checked a door like this. Maybe it was after you'd already locked it, or maybe it was the second time, the third. Each time, the door stands just as it was before. But the reassurance you feel is undeniable, a small but crucial action in a world full of uncertainty. It's the repetition that makes it comforting, isn't it? The small ritual, the soft motion of your hand, the quiet confirmation, you know the door is locked. You knew it the first time, but checking again, just once more, brings a strange comfort. It makes everything feel right, just for a moment. And when it fades, like a whisper, the door remains locked, the world outside waiting patiently. You might not even remember checking it, but somewhere, a part of you is at peace. The lock holds, the door stays still, and for just a little while, everything is as it should be. You might have noticed it, that moment when an ice cube drifts across the surface of your drink, not quite upright, but sideways, floating gently along. It's one of those small, almost imperceptible occurrences, one that's easy to ignore unless you're staring at it long enough to wonder, why does it do that? Still, you've probably seen it many times before. An ice cube dropped into a glass, and instead of sitting perfectly, it rotates. It doesn't always settle with the flat side down, like you'd expect. Instead, it spins, tilting sideways before eventually coming to rest. It feels unnatural, almost like something is misaligned, but there's a reason for it, though you may not think to ask. Ice cubes, like anything else, don't always follow the path we expect. When you watch closely, you might see the way the cube edges barely skim the surface of the water. There are irregularities guiding them into this horizontal drift. It's a quiet, subtle phenomenon. Even now, if you take a drink, you might notice it again. The ice cube, barely moving, a single shift, and there it goes, drifting sideways. It doesn't break the surface tension or cause a disturbance, but it's enough to make you pause, to wonder. It's as if the cube is caught in a quiet current, just beneath the surface. Without much thought, we just accept it. The ice cube floats, sometimes upright, sometimes on its side. It's part of the ritual of drinking. We don't always notice it, but the path it follows is not always determined by gravity. Something else is happening, something as simple as the shape and density of the cube itself. An ice cube, at its core, is simply frozen water. But the shape of the cube, its flat, sharp edges, works in a particular way when it's placed into water. It's not smooth, it's not symmetrical in the way we tend to imagine. It has points, angles, and imperfections, all of which play a part in how it behaves when floating. The ice cube doesn't just float as a block of uniform weight. The density is slightly off in places, and as it touches the water, it doesn't settle into one perfect flat position. It's the result of this subtle imbalance in weight and structure, causing the cube to tilt and rotate with the movement of the water beneath it. Maybe it's the way the air bubbles within the cube shift as it floats, or how the surface tension of the water interacts with the irregular edges of the cube. Still, every tiny imperfection in the ice, every small fluctuation in the water, contributes to the unexpected side tilt. It's all a delicate, unspoken dance between materials. Even the temperature matters. Cold water, for example, may cause the ice to behave differently than warmer water. The surrounding temperature changes the way the ice interacts with the liquid, leading to different floating behaviors. The colder the water, the more reluctant the ice may be to move at all. But when it does, it's still unpredictable. You might think the cube should just sink, or at least remain upright, but this isn't always the case. It's this exact instability, caused by minute variations in temperature, shape, and density, that makes ice cubes float sideways. It's a subtle dance between forces, unnoticed unless you happen to be paying close attention. Sometimes, the cube will settle, still and silent, as if it's come to terms with its position. But it doesn't stay there for long. A small shift in the water's surface, a nudge, and the cube is moving again. Sideways, just enough to catch your eye. It's as though it's following some quiet, unseen rhythm. This gentle floating is a perfect reflection of how the physical world works in the background, unnoticed, beneath the surface. In moments like this, the details are all there if you want to see them. Yet for most, the ice cube becomes just another part of the routine. The floating, the cooling, the sipping. But still, it's happening. Perhaps it's the water itself, its smooth, continuous flow that guides the cube, encouraging its drift. The irregularity of the ice, combined with the fluidity of the water, forms a perfect pairing that keeps the cube in motion. A small ripple, a shift in pressure, and the cube glides across the surface. It's almost like a memory of movement, something we don't often think about. A ripple of time, brief as it is, that we observe in the form of an ice cube. It's the kind of thing that happens so quietly, so effortlessly, that you can easily forget to wonder why. But the answer is always there, beneath the surface. In the end, it's just another part of how the world works, another oddity that exists in the soft spaces between what we see and what we ignore. Perhaps you'll notice it again. Or perhaps, like so many quiet details, it will slip away, only to be remembered when the next ice cube floats sideways. There's something about the way paper towels fold, isn't there? The simple texture beneath your fingers. The way it responds, bends, then settles into its new shape. It's almost like it has a memory, holding the impression of your touch for just a moment before it's pressed into something new, something useful. Still, every fold feels purposeful. Whether you're wiping up a spill or drying your hands, it's as if the folds themselves are part of the process. We don't think about it much, but each fold has its own subtle effect on how the paper towel works, how it moves, how it absorbs, how it holds. Without much thought, you may already know how the paper towel behaves with each fold. There's the quick, casual fold, the one you make when you need just a bit of extra surface area. Then there's the careful, measured fold, the kind that ensures every corner aligns perfectly, as if precision is the key to absorption. Even now, in the back of your mind, you might recall the times you folded paper towels into squares, triangles, or long strips. There's a reason for all of these shapes, even if you haven't yet fully realized it. The way a paper towel folds, the method you choose, affects its strength, efficiency, and even its speed. The most common fold, the quick half fold, is easy, almost instinctual. It halves the towel, making it just a little more compact, a little more absorbent. But if you want to maximize your paper towel's utility, there's a more deliberate fold. A tri-fold, for example, where each segment is layered perfectly, creating a thicker, stronger material. And then there's the accordion fold, a technique often used for display, or for those few moments when you need multiple layers of absorbent material in one go. The series of creases creates tiny pockets of air between layers, increasing its capacity to soak up liquid without breaking apart. It's simple, yet almost artistic in its precision. The truth is, how you fold a paper towel isn't just a matter of preference, it's efficiency, it's geometry. A simple half-fold gives you more area for quick wipes, while a tri-fold packs a punch for a longer, more drawn-out cleaning session. The geometry of each fold plays into how the paper reacts to the job. A small object, a tool you've used hundreds of times, yet rarely think about. When you fold a towel, the fibers within it are being compressed, layered, and shaped. The force of your hands guides them into a new position, subtly changing how each fiber works to absorb what you want it to. The paper towel doesn't just follow your hand's lead, it responds in its own way. The fold influences the towel's ability to retain moisture, determine its strength, and decide how it will perform in your hand. Whether you need a quick swipe or a deep absorbent layer, each fold can change the way it holds up. It's a quiet behavior, folding, one that most people do without thought. Yet in every action, there's a decision. The simple act of folding directs the paper towel's function. The more folds, the stronger the towel becomes. The more layers, the better the absorption. It's an unnoticed choreography of paper and hands. In a way, it's strange how we rarely consider the potential impact of our folds. What if the way we folded our paper towels made a difference in their performance? What if the number of layers, whether folded once, twice, or several times, could change how effectively the towel soaks up liquid? Even the angle at which the folds meet plays a role. Some folds form crisp lines, while others create soft, rounded shapes. The tension in the fold determines how tightly the fibers align with one another, influencing the towel's surface area and its ability to absorb. A subtle difference, but one that matters. Without much thought, we can recall the folds we've made time and time again. The half fold, the tri-fold, or maybe the random pleat you do in a rush. Each fold has a function. It either makes the towel stronger or weaker. It increases or decreases the towel's ability to hold on to what you need it to. A moment passes, and you realize it's not just about cleaning up the mess, it's about how you choose to fold the paper. Even this small task can change the outcome. Each crease, each wrinkle, each moment of precision or lack of it determines how your paper towel behaves when it meets its purpose. The difference, it seems, is in the way we fold, the way we position each layer. The folds don't just serve a functional purpose, they create a rhythm. You've felt it before, the small pleasure in knowing the right fold at the right time. A moment of knowing that the paper towel is ready to perform. Even the most simple, ordinary folds seem to matter. There's something hypnotic in the way paper towels respond to your hands. A deliberate fold creates something stronger, more suited to the task. A hasty fold may make do, but a thoughtful fold holds the promise of more, of better, of just right. A reflection of habit, it's the way we fold without thinking, the same way each time, and yet, it's the quiet art of this repetitive task that shapes the paper towel's performance. It's a lesson in simplicity, in knowing that the smallest choice, a fold, can change everything. And as you fold once more, you might pause to notice how the paper holds its shape, how it feels beneath your fingers. Maybe it's a small shift, a barely noticeable difference, but the fold is always there, quietly influencing, guiding, shaping. It doesn't ask for attention, but it never really leaves. The bowl sits quietly on the countertop. Maybe it's blue, maybe it's white. A spoon rests beside it, waiting. The box of cereal is already open, its cardboard edges crinkling as it gives way to the rush of air. And then, without much thought, you pour. The cereal comes first, always. There's something oddly ritualistic about the way you do it. You don't stop to question why, but you know exactly how it feels to pour the cereal first. It's always cereal, then milk. Something about the way the flakes settle, how the volume of milk will rise. It just makes sense this way. Still, it's not that milk couldn't come first. It would be easy enough, right? You could pour the milk and then watch as the cereal cascades in. But for some reason, it doesn't feel right. It feels out of order, maybe even unnatural. You feel like you're doing it backwards somehow. Even now, the idea of pouring milk first seems a bit off. It's something people rarely do, but it isn't necessarily wrong. It's simply uncommon. It goes against the quiet flow that most of us follow without thinking. Cereal before milk, like a soft understanding we all share, without needing to speak it. Without much thought, the action becomes ingrained, familiar. Polls show that the vast majority of people pour their cereal first. There's no surprise in that. You've likely done it thousands of times. And every time the milk waits patiently for the cereal, like a step that has already been decided for you. Maybe it's because the cereal is dry and we need it to be balanced. The milk, soft and liquid, only adds to the structure. You can't really see how much milk you're pouring without something solid in place. It's about the control, the texture, the feeling of holding it all together before it's drowned. But there's more to it than just that. It's not just practicality. The order we choose feels like a little act of comfort, a way of doing something right, even in a small, unimportant part of the day. The cereal, the milk, they become more than ingredients. They become part of a dance. This is where the rituals begin, where they take root without us noticing. The choice feels subtle, almost automatic. The milk would be a strange starting point, too freeform, too formless. The cereal grounds it, anchors it, sets the stage for the moment to unfold. The rhythm of it just works. No questions asked. It's not just about cereal. We do this with other things too. The way you butter your toast, the way you step into your shoes, there's a rhythm to it, a logic buried in the daily movements we barely notice. We don't question the cereal first. We don't need to. It's already understood. Even now, ask yourself, what would happen if you switched it? If you poured milk first, then cereal, it doesn't feel like a real change, but something would feel off. Maybe it's not wrong, but it's not quite right either. There's a comfort in the way things are, in the ritual we repeat. You might have seen someone pour their milk first, and if you have, it was probably a fleeting thought. The oddness of it passing quickly. After all, who really thinks about this? It's cereal. But that little action, the milk first, it's not just breaking the rule, it's breaking a quiet pattern you've always followed. Without much thought, you know the feel of the cereal filling the bowl, the milk rising gently, like the finish to a small task. You know when the proportions are just right. Maybe it's more about feeling the right balance than about how the milk interacts with the cereal. The flow is familiar, and we like it that way. Even now, after years of cereal habits, that moment of milk swirling into cereal is still satisfying. It's a kind of quiet mastery. You've done this enough times to know that it doesn't matter what should come first. It matters what feels best, what makes sense in that small, repetitive action. The next time you pour cereal, think about how automatic it feels. Think about why you didn't pour the milk first. It's not something you really think about, but that doesn't mean it's not important. Little things, like how we move and the rhythm we follow, shape our day more than we notice. Tomorrow, or the next time, it will be the same. Cereal before milk. Your hands will follow the pattern, like they've done 1,000 times before. The milk will wait, and so it always begins without effort, without question.
It just is.
It doesn't ask why, it doesn't need to. The sound of wheels rolling softly across the floor, the almost rhythmic squeak of rubber against tile. A shopping cart, worn by countless hands, glides through the store, its metal frame creaking under the weight of the items within. You've probably leaned on it too without a second thought. The cart feels sturdy, comforting. Its long handle fits your hand just right, and the space between the basket and the ground holds just enough room for your fingers to relax. You might rest against it for a moment, a quiet reprieve from the bustle of the aisle. But what does it do to your body? Still, most of us don't think about the impact of that small decision. To lean, just slightly, for a few moments, but those few moments, repeated again and again, start to add up. It's as if the simple act of leaning changes your posture just enough to shift something deeper inside. There's a subtle, hidden shift in how you stand when you lean. Your spine, once vertical, starts to curve just a little more. It's the same curve that comes from slumping in a chair. A slight adjustment, but one that starts to draw the body forward. And so, the muscles in your back, your hips, respond. Even now you might find yourself standing just a little differently, without realizing it. The body is resilient, but it's also adaptive. Leaning on the cart creates an instinctive change in the way you balance yourself. Instead of standing firmly, you rest. It's an easy, familiar thing, and that's where the consequences sneak in. Without much thought, your body might begin to compensate for the strain. A slight shift of weight from one leg to the other, the hip jutting out just a bit. The muscles in the lower back tighten slightly, almost imperceptibly. The next time you stand without leaning, you might feel the faintest discomfort, a reminder of that familiar leaning position. As you move along the aisles, your shoulders may shift too. The top of your back rounds forward. It's the kind of motion that feels natural, but over time, you'll notice the soreness creeping in, that ache in the shoulder blade, the discomfort along your spine. It's all from a simple change in how you hold yourself. And the knees, they're not immune either. A small change in posture affects the entire body. The leg you place more weight on begins to ache. Not immediately, but after an hour or so of standing with that little extra tilt. Your knees, once taken for granted, now show the subtle signs of the shift. It's a quiet thing, like a whisper. Your body doesn't demand attention, but it adjusts nonetheless. The hand that once grasped the cart might now be holding more tightly, subconsciously to balance your weight. You're still moving, still shopping. But with each turn of the wheel, your body is slowly asking for something more. There's a strange familiarity to this feeling, isn't there? The way you stand, the way you shift, the way you lean, it's become part of the experience. It's not just about the shopping anymore. It's about the rhythm your body finds in this small act, this tiny adjustment, but at what cost? And yet, even as you notice the discomfort, there's a pull to continue. Just one more aisle. Another turn of the cart, the weight of the bag in your hand, the small act of leaning. You hardly think of it, but your body is remembering how this has felt before, and the way it will feel again. If you pause for a moment and release that familiar grip, the feeling of standing upright returns. For a fleeting second, you can feel your spine straightening, your muscles stretching. But soon enough, your hand returns to the cart, and the cycle begins again. A small, comfortable rhythm of leaning, moving, and leaning once more. Even now, you might find yourself adjusting, as if the cart has pulled you into a new posture once more. The body learns fast, but sometimes the learning is quiet, unnoticed, and as the cart rolls on, so too do the quiet adjustments of your body, unnoticed, but always there. You could try standing differently, of course. The simple decision to let go, to stand a bit taller, might give your body a reprieve. But the cart keeps moving, and it's easy to slip back into the familiar lean. A subtle back and forth, as the world continues to whirl around you ever so gently. In the end, the cart doesn't care. It's just a tool, just a means to an end. But for us, it's more than that. It's an extension of the rhythm we fall into, without thought. An unconscious companion that shapes us, however quietly. And when the shopping is done, the discomfort lingers, like a reminder of a journey taken without realizing it. Maybe next time you'll notice it, or maybe you won't. The cart will always be there, and so will the small shifts it invites, the ones we never fully recognize, but they stay. Waiting, just beneath the surface, asking for only the slightest attention. It's a quiet moment at the entrance of a building. The glass spins slowly, a gentle whirl of motion, just enough to catch your eye. You reach for the door, instinctively matching your pace to the turn, as if you know it already. But something's off. It's not quite right. Still, you continue, stepping forward, waiting for the door to shift in just the way you expected. Your timing feels right, but the door moves faster than you thought, or perhaps too slow. There's an odd pause just before your foot lands on the threshold. You miscalculated. Again, without much thought, you step back, adjusting. The door seems to speed up again, almost like it's teasing you, just a little too fast or too slow. You tell yourself, next time you'll catch it. The next time, you'll know exactly when to step, but it's always the same. Even now, as you wait for it to align perfectly, you can feel that odd hesitation. You glance around, other people move through effortlessly, as if they're in sync with the rhythm of the door. You start to wonder why you never seem to get it right. Why does it feel so unpredictable? It's just a door, spinning, an everyday object. But in that brief moment, the speed shifts, confusing you in a way that feels like something else entirely. Why do we all misjudge it? Why does it keep happening, again and again, no matter how many times we step into that same revolving space? You try to recalibrate, watching the door's motion carefully. The small gaps between the glass panels, each movement seeming to slow, then accelerate without warning. You wait for it to match your rhythm, and yet it never does. There's an invisible dance happening, but it's a rhythm you can't quite grasp. Still, you're drawn to the door. It's a quiet puzzle you can't solve. Every step you take toward it feels like a test of timing, of coordination, and yet every time you reach the glass, you're off by a fraction that feels like a moment lost. Even now, after years of entering and exiting buildings with revolving doors, there's always that slight misjudgment, that hesitation. A feeling that the door knows more than you do, knows the precise tempo that eludes you. Maybe it's simply the door's quiet reminder that timing is never as certain as we think it is. Without much thought, you move toward the door again. The glass begins its gentle rotation, just like it always does. And you wait for the perfect moment to step in sync, but this time you don't try so hard. Maybe it will align, or maybe it won't. It's not up to you anyway. The door spins, and you step in, but there's no perfect timing. It's never quite as smooth as you imagined. Even though it's just a door, the moment feels significant, like a small failure or a little victory, depending on how you see it. Perhaps both at once, perhaps neither. Still, you wonder about the others, the ones who pass through without hesitation, as if they know the exact pace of the revolving glass. Maybe they don't overthink it. Maybe they let the door move as it will, and step into the rhythm when it comes to them naturally. Maybe that's the secret. Even now, as you walk away, the memory of that misjudgment stays with you. It's as if the door itself is still spinning in your mind, a motion that doesn't quite stop. The timing you never seem to catch. But there's no rush. The next time you'll try again. Or maybe you won't. Without much thought, you move on, letting the door fade from your focus. It might have been something, or it might have been nothing. A fleeting moment. Perhaps you'll never quite understand it, but it doesn't matter. The door continues to spin, indifferent to the small human mystery it leaves behind. It simply waits, quiet, unchanged, and you once again misjudge the speed. It's strange, isn't it? The stillness, the quiet unfolding of time. The surface once smooth and clean, now holding a fresh coat of paint, waiting for the world to notice. The room is calm. The brushstrokes are slow, deliberate, and you're here, watching, waiting for something to change. Still, nothing does. The clock ticks on, but the paint doesn't change. It's as if the seconds stretch just a little longer, as if time itself has decided to pause in this moment, and all that's left is the wetness of the paint and the slight glisten it gives off under the light. Without much thought, you might start to wonder, why do we do this? Why do we sit and stare at something that doesn't change, something that we know will eventually dry and fade into the background of everything else? What is it about this stillness that holds us in place? Even now, as the brush is set down and the final streak of color has been added, you might be surprised to realize that you haven't moved. You're still there, watching the paint as it transforms, slowly, into something else. It's not just paint anymore. It's something else, something you can't quite name. You know it's temporary. The paint will dry, and this strange pause will end. But for now, there's something oddly compelling about the way the color shifts, not in leaps, but in soft, almost imperceptible ways. You might even feel the seconds pass differently, more deliberately, as if each moment is stretched just a little thinner. A thought lingers. What if this is something we all experience, this strange pull of watching paint dry? A part of our minds seems to shift, settle into the rhythm. It's as if time has slowed, and your gaze, though focused, is detached. The world around you continues, but you remain. You've probably seen it before. A freshly painted wall, or a newly laid coat of varnish, waiting to dry. Maybe you didn't think much of it then, but today, you notice something more. The way the edges blur and fade, the way the light reflects, ever so slightly, off the surface. It's a dance of color, of light, of time. Still, there's more to it than just idle observation. Some have measured it, the way we watch paint dry. They say it affects us. That subtle act of waiting, of holding our focus, changes something within us. It shifts our attention, like the moment before sleep when the world feels distant and slow. Even now, you may find yourself a little more aware of your surroundings, a little more focused on the small things. The drip of paint, the subtle shift of light across the surface, the way it catches your eye and keeps it there. It's not the paint itself, it's the way it keeps you waiting. A strange thing happens when we watch things dry. We fall into it, not immediately, but over time, that strange stillness begins to feel normal. The color begins to take on a life of its own, like a forgotten melody that repeats over and over. You may even find comfort in this repetitive motion. It's easy to dismiss, but there's something almost meditative about it. The patience required, the understanding that it will dry, that it will change, but not yet. For just a while, you sit with it. As time becomes elastic, it pulls at the edges, softens them. The paint is still wet, still waiting. Without much thought, you might start to notice the way the air feels a little different. Cooler maybe. Fresher. The drying paint is no longer just an object. It's part of the environment. It's a rhythm. Your body, your mind, align with it. The quietness invites you to simply be. Still, this sensation isn't entirely unique. People have been measuring it for years, how the act of watching paint dry affects us. Psychologists have noted it, even if they haven't quite figured out why we are drawn to it. They say that we, as humans, find a strange satisfaction in the waiting, in the slow progression. Even now, as the paint slowly changes, you may feel a deeper kind of focus, an intimacy with the process. It's a quiet bond, unspoken but present. You watch as the surface transforms, just like everything else in life. Everything takes time. Some things are immediate, others, like this paint, simply take longer. It's not dramatic, it's not even eventful, but there is a beauty in it, a soft comfort in this slow transformation. The paint dries, the seconds tick away, but you remain in that quiet moment just a little longer. Not out of necessity, but because for a time, it feels right to do so. A repetition unfolds, and you find yourself in tune with it. Perhaps you've watched paint dry before without much thought, but now, you notice the slowness of it, the way each moment stretches, the way it invites you to become part of the process, part of the waiting. A quiet, deliberate kind of patience, and then the change happens. You may not even notice it immediately. The paint is dry now, no longer reflecting the light in the same way. The texture has shifted. It's part of the room now, part of the environment, settled into its place. But in that moment, the stillness lingers. It simply waits, quiet, unchanged. There's a moment when you're standing at a crosswalk, waiting for the light to change. The button is right there, glowing softly, but there's something unspoken. You've already pressed it, but your finger hovers just above it. The question is simple: should I press it again? Still you wait. The seconds stretch out like a quiet rhythm. A part of you wonders if pressing it again will somehow speed things up. The world is busy around you, cars rushing past, the hum of life moving in all directions. But in this moment, you stand still. The button remains. The light stays red, and yet, there's a hesitation. Even though you know the light will change when it's ready, there's a small, almost instinctual pull to hit the button once more. Maybe it's a feeling of control, or maybe it's just a reminder that you're here. The seconds tick by. You glance at your watch. 30 seconds have passed. The question still lingers: should I press it again? The button looks the same as it did when you first pressed it. It sits there silent and waiting, like a still invitation. It's a small act, but it holds your attention. Without much thought, you press it again. The rhythm of waiting continues. A sense of impatience builds as you stand there, aware of the world moving without you. The light won't change faster. You know that. And yet there's something satisfying in the simple repetition of action. It feels like progress. It's a curious thing, this pause before pressing the button again. How long do people wait? It's a question studied quietly, without fanfare. Research has shown that most people will press the crosswalk button again within 7 seconds. 7 seconds. Not too long, but long enough for the thought to settle in. Even now, you might find yourself at a crosswalk, waiting to cross. The button is just there within reach. A small object, so simple, but in its simplicity, it calls for attention. You press it, you wait, you look around. The time passes, unnoticed, but it feels like you're waiting for something more. You've seen others do it too. The repeated press of the button, that brief moment of doubt, it's almost automatic. This hesitation, this tiny act of repeating. Maybe it's not so much about the light changing, but about the rhythm of the wait. The pattern of action feels like it matters. A few seconds can seem like a long time, but in those moments everything slows. The city hums around you, but you stand still, fingers hovering over the button. Maybe you've pressed it 5 times, maybe once. It doesn't matter. Each moment feels like it's suspended, a simple choice that carries weight, even if it's unseen. And then there's the sound, the click of the button, the slight reassurance that it's still working, that the system is in place. The world is still moving around you, but in this small moment, you've created a sense of order, a brief control in the chaos of waiting. In a way, pressing the button again is an act of repetition, of ritual. Even if you know it won't change anything, you do it. It's a tiny assurance, a soft comfort. The seconds tick by as you wait, pressing the button, observing the stillness of it all. But it's more than just waiting for the light. Without much thought, you might start to feel the passage of time. It's not a long wait, but it feels like one. A moment of pause, a brief interlude in the flow of your day. It doesn't matter if you're in a hurry or not, there's something steadying in this small, quiet action. The people around you move in their own rhythm. Some press the button too, some don't, but there's a quiet unity in the shared experience of standing still, waiting for something to change, for something to move forward. The rhythm of action and stillness playing out in every crosswalk, every intersection. And then after what seems like an eternity, or just a few moments, the light changes. You've crossed the street. The world moves on, the button remains, ready for the next person to stand before it. Another moment of stillness, another brief pause in the flow of time. Maybe tomorrow, you'll stand at another crosswalk. The same button, the same rhythm, the seconds will pass, unnoticed, and you'll wait. Maybe press it again, maybe you won't. The small acts of our days, these unnoticed moments, they linger quietly, even after they've passed. The button is still there, waiting. It doesn't ask for attention, but it never really leaves. There's a quiet, subtle shift when someone yawns nearby. It's almost as if you feel it before you see it, a moment of release, soft and sudden. The body stretches involuntarily, and the air in the room shifts, as if time itself is taking a small, tired breath. Still, it's not always the yawn itself that catches your attention, but the way it spreads. One moment, you're unaware of any tiredness, and the next, your body mirrors the gesture. It happens without thought, an instinctual response. Without much thought, your mouth opens, and you find yourself yawning too. Even now, the echo of that yawn lingers in the air. You can almost feel the warmth of it, passing from one person to another, like a shared rhythm, quiet but undeniable. The stretch of muscles, the brief pause, the soft exhale of breath. It's all somehow connected, a tiny universal gesture. It's strange, isn't it? How the body can mimic someone else's actions so effortlessly. A simple gesture that's passed between two people, like a secret the body knows better than the mind. Without warning, you're yawning as if you've been carrying that tiredness all along, even though it's not your own. You might wonder what it is about yawning that draws this response. It's not just the person next to you who yawns, it's the act itself, the smooth motion, the contagious quality of it that triggers something deep within. The urge to follow, to stretch your own tiredness into the air, becomes almost automatic. And yet, even now, there's a quiet mystery to the phenomenon. Why do we do it? The moment the first yawn slips out, it's as if an invisible thread connects you to the person who started it. And just like that, without any decision, you follow suit, joining in the subtle symphony of tiredness. You might notice it more in moments of stillness, when the room is quiet, and all that remains is the gentle sound of someone yawning, the breath filling the space. And then it's there. A soft, almost unconscious trigger. Your body responds, not out of choice, but out of something more primal, something shared. It happens so easily. The rhythm of another's tiredness becomes your own, and in an instant, you're no longer just an observer. You're part of it, caught in the quiet pull of a shared human moment. The yawns drift between you like a breeze, passing through the room in perfect sync. Without much thought, you wonder if anyone else has noticed. Does it feel the same for them? The yawn is so simple, so small, and yet its ability to spread so quickly is fascinating. One person yawns, and before long, the room is filled with the soft rise and fall of breath. A shared moment, unspoken but felt. Even now the feeling lingers in the air. The quiet after effect of that yawn, it's almost as if your body has reset, like a gentle reminder that sometimes it's okay to let go of the tension for just a moment, to stretch, to breathe deeply, and then return to the stillness. It's strange how little we question these things, how often we mimic others without thinking. But it's there, in that quiet imitation, that something universal happens, a small shared moment between people, a soft bond formed without a word being exchanged. Just a simple gesture, passed from one to the next. Still there's something calming about it, the gentle rhythmic flow of yawns that passes from person to person. No force, no struggle. It's almost like a signal, a quiet permission to rest. It's like the body's way of telling itself that it's okay to take a break, even for just a breath. The pattern continues, even now. You might feel it again, a slow, subtle pull. Maybe you didn't mean to, but you're yawning once more. It doesn't feel like a choice anymore. It's as though the yawn has become a part of the moment. The quiet ripple of tiredness spreading through the room, from one person to the next, and just like that, the cycle continues, fading into the background of the day. It waits, without urgency, until the next yawn comes along. The same gentle rhythm, the same quiet connection. Maybe you won't notice it tomorrow, or maybe you will. But when it happens again, it will be just as quiet, just as inevitable. It doesn't ask for attention, but it never really leaves. There's something about the feeling, the coolness that spreads up from the soles of your feet, seeping into the cracks between your toes. The moisture clings, almost clingy in a way that no one quite expects. It's not just the dampness, it's the way it settles, uneasy, unwanted. Still, you didn't notice it at first. You step in, a casual movement. Then there's that pause, that moment where everything feels just a little off, like the floor has turned on you. You instinctively pull your foot away, but it's too late. The feeling has already sunk in. Even now you can almost feel it again, can't you? The wetness, the slickness, the way your skin sticks for a moment. It's a sensation that seems simple, but somehow it lingers in a way that's hard to shake. You wipe your feet, yet the memory remains, like something you can't quite wash away. Without much thought, your body reacts. The way you move, the way you shift, it's all a little more cautious now. Every step is measured, hesitant. You try to avoid the spots, but your feet still find them, and each time it's the same. The same reaction, the same discomfort that rises inside you. There's something primal about it, isn't there? It's as if your body instinctively knows that wet surfaces are a sign of imbalance. A floor that's too wet is a hazard, a place where things can go wrong. It's slippery, unstable. You don't need to think about it, your body just knows. Even now you can feel your mind beginning to twist in discomfort. The coolness lingers in your thoughts, just as it lingered on your feet. The thought of it seems almost out of place in the otherwise dry, steady world of the bathroom. Your feet don't belong here, not in this strange, soft puddle. The strange thing is that it's not just the coldness, it's the unpredictability. The water isn't supposed to be there. The floor, built for solid steps, now becomes something else, something unfamiliar. The wetness changes its texture. What was once reliable is now treacherous, slipping away underfoot. Without much thought, your mind starts to search for reasons. Why this sensation? Why this discomfort? The human brain, always scanning for patterns, doesn't like the disarray. It thrives on certainty, on predictability. Water on the floor, especially in places like a bathroom, is an unpredictable element. It interrupts the flow. You've seen it before, a towel left on the floor, a forgotten splash of water from the shower. It never seems like much, just a drop here or there. But still, your mind registers it, like a small warning. Something isn't right. It's as if the space, the bathroom, is no longer as safe as it once was. Still, your body responds. A shift in posture, a more tentative step, it's a slow adaptation, but it happens without thinking. The feeling isn't always about the wetness itself, but about the change, the shift in expectation. A bathroom floor, once a simple surface, is now something your feet must cautiously consider. Even now you might be picturing it, the way the water collects in small puddles, the way it seems to find places where you least expect it. It's not just about the floor being wet. It's the way it pulls your attention, brings it to that one spot, the moment everything else seems to fade into the background. It's odd how something so small, just water, a little moisture, can disrupt everything. The wet floor is a detail, a tiny interruption in the normal flow of things. Yet it carries weight, not because of its size, but because of the discomfort it causes. It's an unwanted detail that demands attention. Without much thought, you might begin to notice the way your thoughts change. You think about where to step, where to avoid, how to move. It's a strange kind of calculation, one that emerges only when the floor becomes slick, uncertain. You may even find yourself pacing, avoiding the damp patches in your path. There's a sense of control slipping away in these moments. A bathroom floor, once a stable ground for your feet, becomes a wild card. It's a small thing, but it feels out of place. You didn't expect it, and now each step becomes a careful negotiation, a dance with the possibility of slipping. Even now your feet are remembering it. The coolness, the softness, your mind, still fixated on that one small detail, can't shake the thought of it. The feeling doesn't ask for attention, but it doesn't let you forget. It lingers in the corners of your thoughts, waiting for the next time it happens. And still, even in the quiet moments, it doesn't fade completely. The discomfort sits there, just beneath the surface. The next time you step into a bathroom, you'll know, you'll be aware, even before your foot touches the floor. That awareness, that little unease, will be there, waiting to rise again. It simply waits, quiet, unchanged. You're sitting in a darkened theater, the faint hum of quiet conversations filling the air as the lights begin to dim. The seat is soft beneath you, but somehow, it's never quite right. A subtle discomfort lingers, and you shift, just slightly. Not enough to draw attention, but enough to make things better. It's strange, really, how something as simple as a seat can demand your attention. A few moments pass, and then again you adjust, this time a little more, trying to find that perfect position. You're not alone, though. It's happening all around you, a quiet dance of shifting bodies in the dark. Still, you don't really notice how many times it happens. Not at first. The theater fills, the lights fade, and the screen begins to glow, yet that urge to adjust remains. A small shift of your legs, a repositioning of your back. It's a quiet, constant need, barely registered, yet present in every theater seat. Even now, if you pay attention, you'll see it. The subtle movements in the dark. Someone leans forward, then leans back, their body restless, searching for the right spot. Another person crosses their legs, uncrosses them, then shifts again. It's like an invisible rhythm, dictated by the seat itself, by the body that must adjust. Without much thought, you'll find yourself doing it too. the constant unconscious pull to make things just a little bit more comfortable. It's a natural impulse, but it's not something that always happens consciously. It's like breathing. You don't notice it, yet it happens over and over every time you sit in that theater chair. As the movie starts, you settle in, but the adjustments continue. A tiny move to the left, a small shift of the shoulders, a nudge of the foot, each little motion brings you closer to that feeling of ease. It's a process you don't control, but one that guides you in small, almost imperceptible movements. It's easy to forget just how often it happens, but studies suggest that on average, people readjust in their seats at least 3 to 5 times during the course of a movie. It's almost as if the seat, in its quiet way, knows exactly how much you need to shift. The body's desire to move and change is almost built into the experience. Still, it's not just about comfort. There's something else at play. The need to adjust may also be tied to focus. As the movie unfolds, your body reacts to the subtle cues around it. A shift, a movement, can refresh your attention, refocus you, allowing you to feel more engaged. The small motions are as much a part of the experience as the story on screen. In a way, it's almost an act of surrender. The theater seat, no matter how comfortable, has a way of coaxing you into constant movement. You might not even realize you're doing it. You're not just watching a film, you're being part of the scene, even if you're only moving in tiny, barely noticeable ways. Without much thought, the movie carries on, and so do the shifts. You might feel a moment of stillness, but only for a second. Then, the body will remind you that it's not quite settled, that it's always in motion, even when you don't realize it. Each readjustment is like a breath, necessary but fleeting. You can't quite control it though, can you? The need to shift, to refine that perfect balance. It's as if the seat, in its unassuming way, beckons you to move. The subtle discomforts, sometimes invisible, become part of the show, your body weaving into the rhythm of the theater experience itself. Even now, as you settle into the film, the cycle continues. Maybe you'll shift a little more, perhaps not. But the adjustments will happen, one after the other, like waves on a shore. You may not notice the rhythm, but it's there, steady and soft, guiding you into the movie's embrace. There's a strange comfort in it, the way we always return to this gentle reconfiguration. The moment you think you've found your place, another slight shift comes almost unnoticed, but perfectly timed. You don't mind, do you? In fact, it becomes almost reassuring, this continuous search for just the right position. Maybe tomorrow, you'll notice it more. Or maybe you'll just keep moving, keep adjusting, like everyone else around you. But each time you do, the theater seat will quietly remind you of its unspoken rhythm, an invisible part of the experience that's just as constant as the movie itself. It doesn't ask for attention, but it's always there, like a soft current beneath the surface. You may never see it, but each subtle adjustment, every shift, is part of the way we exist in these spaces. And when the lights come up, you'll leave, and the cycle will begin again. It simply waits. Maybe you'll notice it next time. Or maybe you'll just keep moving. Either way, the seat remains, and so does the need to adjust, again and again. The soft brush of fingertips against skin, the smooth curve of something just slightly imperfect. In a grocery store, among rows of fruit, a hand reaches out, a quiet pause, and then the gentle touch, as though each piece were waiting for the slightest attention before it's chosen. But why? The apple sits in its perfect row, shiny and red, but something compels a touch. Is it the smoothness of the skin? The weight in your palm? Maybe it's the way the fruit glistens in the light, the slight shift in color beneath your fingers. Something always draws us in, even without thought. Still, it's easy to forget how often this happens. A habit, something nearly invisible, like the air you breathe, touching fruit before it's chosen, inspecting it without really looking. How many times do we do this in a single shopping trip? How many people, without thinking, reach for the same fruit to touch it? In a moment of stillness, it's all too easy to overlook the reason behind this. The sensation of holding something, inspecting it, is a small ritual. But what if behind this small action, there's something larger, something shared among us all? Turns out, a surprising percentage of shoppers do the same thing. Without much thought, you might pick up the fruit, feel its weight, squeeze it lightly, and place it back down. It's a small act, unnoticed, but universally repeated. In fact, studies suggest that around 70% of shoppers touch the fruit they're about to buy. A number that's almost too high to believe, yet it lingers, like a gentle pattern. Why does it happen? Is it instinct, a way of checking for ripeness, or simply a way of connecting with the world around us? Perhaps it's all of those things, or perhaps it's just part of the quiet rhythm of shopping. The hands reach out, without hesitation, and the fruit becomes more than just an item. Even now, when you walk through a produce aisle, your hand might reach out without even thinking. A slight brush of your fingers, a soft pause before making a choice. It's a subtle decision, one made in silence, as if the fruit itself waits for the touch. No one notices the action. It's just done. The touch itself doesn't change much. The fruit still sits there, waiting to be bought. Yet, there's something soothing about it, almost ritualistic. A tiny act of interaction in an otherwise impersonal world of choices. You wonder if you didn't touch it, would it still be the same? Would the connection feel different? In those few moments, when the fingers graze the surface, there's a quiet pause. The fruit is just fruit, but in the act of touching it, the decision becomes personal. It's as if that single fleeting contact with the object makes it your own, even before you've made the final choice. Still, this action, this touch, is far from unique. It's repeated in stores everywhere, across the world. Shoppers reach, touch, and move on. There's no need to think about it. The pattern is already set. The hand will always go out, and the fruit will always be felt. It's simply what we do, and yet there's something almost comforting about the fact that so many others do it too. That 70% isn't just a statistic, it's a shared moment, a universal truth. It's a part of the shopping experience, a habit that ties us all together, even if it's never spoken aloud. Without much thought, the ritual continues. It's one of those small things that people do without truly understanding why. Perhaps it's the texture, the shine, the potential for something just right. Or maybe it's simply that the act of touching brings the fruit into the realm of the real, of the tangible. It's no longer just a product on a shelf. In the end, the percentage remains. The touch stays the same. It's almost as though we crave the connection, even with something as simple as an apple. The decision is made in a moment, guided by the faintest of touches, like a small ripple in a pond that fades quickly, unnoticed but still felt. And as you move through the aisles, with your hand still reaching out, you realize that maybe it doesn't matter why. Maybe it's enough to know that this small ritual happens again and again. The touch, the pause, the choice. It simply is. It simply waits. Tomorrow, when you're back in the store, that gentle habit will find you again. The touch will still be there, unspoken, unnoticed. Maybe you'll think about it, or maybe you won't. Either way, the rhythm will carry on, just as it always has. A small gesture in the quiet of the day. It doesn't need an explanation. It doesn't ask for one, but it's there, part of the everyday hum of the world. And in that there's something oddly comforting, even in the simplicity of it all. The lid of the jar doesn't seem like much at first, does it? A small metal thing, shiny on the outside, jagged on the inside. But when it's stuck, when it resists, it becomes a whole different story. It's not just a lid anymore. It's a puzzle, a test. Still, you know the routine by now. You grip it, twist, twist again, harder. The jar seems to laugh at you, its smooth surface mocking the effort. You shift your grip, trying a different angle, and for a moment you think it might move. But no, it stays still, unyielding. You might try pushing down on the lid, as though that would somehow change the physics of the situation. The lid sits there, doing its best impression of an immovable object. Your hand, now slightly sweaty, twists with a new kind of frustration as the lid shifts, but just barely. Even now, the lid sits there, stubborn in its silence. You can feel the edges of your patience fraying, the quiet indignation creeping in. How long can this last? You wonder, then you feel it. The threshold, that point where you know you can't let go. You won't let it win. Without much thought, your grip tightens again. The muscles in your hand flex with all the quiet, silent energy that's been building. You think to yourself, asterisk this time, I'll get it. The subtle resistance of the jar lid pulls something deep in you. It becomes not about the jar, but about the principle. You push harder. The twisting motion becomes rhythm now. Not so much a simple task, but a subtle dance, an unwilling negotiation. Each turn is an unspoken promise. Dot, tit, I'll keep going if you'll just release. The lid doesn't care, of course. It's indifferent to your growing frustration, to your unspoken determination. And yet you feel it, that shift. The lid moves a fraction more. You don't see it yet, but you know it's coming. That moment where the resistance will break and the jar will surrender. It's not just the jar anymore. It's the threshold of frustration. The edge of your patience being tested. You might pause for a second, not because you need to, but because it feels right. The rhythm has slowed, but it's not over. The frustration is there, just under the surface, like a soft hum. And yet there's something satisfying in it. The stillness before the breakthrough. It holds you, just for a moment. Then, without warning, it happens. The lid gives way. It pops open with a small, almost inaudible sound. It's a release, a quiet victory. The jar, once a locked fortress, is now yours, and yet the victory feels different. It's not the jar you've conquered, but the frustration, the quiet patience, finally rewarded. Still, you don't celebrate it with much fanfare. The jar is open, you've done it, but the feeling lingers. The moment stretches in your mind, not because the jar is open, but because of the dance, the struggle. You wonder briefly how long that little battle lasted. Maybe it was minutes, maybe it was seconds. The feeling isn't just about the jar anymore. It's about the space in between, the frustration, the effort. It's the soft tension of the threshold, just before it's released. In a way, it's a familiar feeling, the slow, almost invisible effort of trying something small, only to realize the payoff is never as big as the journey. Even now, your fingers still feel the lingering pressure, the jar lid that wouldn't move until it did. It's strange how a simple act of twisting, of pulling, can take on such weight. It doesn't matter if it's a jar lid or something else. The feeling is the same, the thin line between effort and surrender. Without much thought, you wonder how many other things in life are like that jar lid. Things that sit in front of us, silent and stubborn, waiting for just the right moment to give way. They don't always need to be big. Sometimes, it's the small things that demand the most patience, the most persistence. The jar lid is put away now, forgotten. But the frustration it gave, that tiny moment of resistance, stays with you a little longer. Not because it was something significant, but because it wasn't. It was something small, but it demanded a moment of attention. And in that, it feels important. Maybe tomorrow, you'll face a new jar lid. Or maybe it will be something else entirely. But for now, there's the quiet knowledge that some things just need time. The lid will turn when it's ready. Just like everything else, eventually, it will give way. But until then, there's patience, just waiting. The hum of fluorescent lights overhead, the soft click of keys on a keyboard, a familiar rhythm fills the space, blending with the occasional shuffle of papers. But there's another movement, almost unnoticed, that happens throughout the day, the journey to the printer. The small, routine trip that quietly interrupts the flow. Without much thought, it becomes just part of the routine. A pause in the day. A simple task, really. You stand, stretch for a moment, and walk across the room. Maybe it's a few steps, maybe more. The printer hums in the corner, waiting for you to arrive. Even now, the printer sits there, always ready. The journey is simple, but how many steps does it take? The average worker, crossing the floor, probably doesn't count them. It's just a brief trip, an action done out of habit. But take a moment to think, how far is that trip? Really? The printer is always a few steps away, yet it seems like a ritual. You know the path by heart, the way the carpet feels beneath your feet, the low murmur of voices around you. The office is calm, but in those few moments, it's only the walk that matters. The printer calls. Without thought, you take those steps, and they blur into the rest of your day. Maybe it's 10 steps, maybe 20. It's not important, really. What matters is the act itself, that tiny pause where you leave your desk, step away from your work, and return again. Task completed, moment fleeting, and still you don't count the steps. Maybe it's never crossed your mind. It's just a part of the process, the rhythm of your day. The printer, always there, silently waiting for you to return, a small anchor in the sea of tasks. The movement is unremarkable, but it's there, again and again. But when you start to think about it, you begin to wonder, how many steps does it take to reach the printer and come back? Not many, surely. It's just a few moments out of your day, a tiny movement between the larger parts of the routine. Yet, there's something about it that feels constant. Even now, you might find yourself stepping toward it once more, without even thinking. The printer hums, the task beckons, and the steps are already on their way, as familiar as the rest of the office's small routines. There's no reason to count them, yet there's something oddly satisfying in knowing. Still, it doesn't change the fact that the steps are always there, always the same. The printer waits, and you walk toward it. It doesn't need to be measured, but it keeps you grounded. Every return trip is another small part of the day. The motion becomes the task, and the task becomes the motion. Perhaps it's not about the steps at all. It's about the rhythm. The way the act fits seamlessly into the larger picture of the office, the small pattern that holds your day together, unnoticed. The printer is just a moment, just a pause, and yet, it's always there, waiting for you to walk back. You might not always notice, but there's something comforting in that routine. The printer, the journey, the steps, they are part of the ebb and flow of the office, as familiar as the buzz of the lights or the tapping of fingers on keys. A small movement in the middle of the day, without much thought, you slip back into your seat. The task complete, the journey over. The printer sits there again, quiet and still, until the next moment calls you to walk once more. The cycle continues, unnoticed, as steady as the clock on the wall, ticking along in the background. Still, there's something oddly fulfilling in that journey. Each time you make the trip, it's like the pause you didn't know you needed. A break from the tasks, a moment to shift gears. And then, as you sit back down, you realize the rhythm is what keeps you moving forward. Perhaps you'll think about it next time. How many steps does it take to the printer? How far does the journey really go? But then again, maybe it's enough to just let it be. The quiet path between the desk and the printer, a small part of the day that never asks for attention. The next time you stand to walk there, it won't seem remarkable. It will just be another part of the day. The printer will be waiting, and you will step toward it, like you always have. Maybe you won't even notice the steps. They will just be, quietly. The soft click of the elevator button, the quiet hum of the lights above, and the fleeting moment of stillness as you wait. And then, just as you think the doors will open, someone steps forward, their finger pressing the button again. You feel it, don't you? A small shift in the air. Still, it's such a small thing, a gesture that doesn't seem to mean much. But for a brief second, it stirs something in you. A soft tension, like a breath held too long. That faint, almost invisible annoyance, it lingers for just a moment, then fades, but it's always there. You've done it yourself, haven't you? Pressed the button again, almost without thinking, just to make sure. Maybe you do it because it feels like you're participating, making the process go faster, or maybe you've noticed someone else do it, and for reasons you can't explain, it just bothers you, even if you don't admit it. The thing is, this tiny interaction, this small act, has a curious effect. It's not about the button. It's not even about the elevator. It's the sense of control, the need to assert something in the face of waiting. The button press becomes a gesture of power in a place where power feels out of reach. Without much thought, you might brush it off, dismissing the slight irritation as nothing. But there it is again, that faint frustration, like a wrinkle in the smooth fabric of time. It doesn't really change anything. The elevator isn't moving any faster, yet somehow it feels like it should. Even now, as you think about it, you realize it's not about the action itself, it's the feeling that accompanies it. The subtle sense of being slighted, the press of the button, is a reminder that we're constantly seeking assurance in the most mundane moments. We want to feel that things are moving in the right direction. It's interesting, isn't it? How something so simple can create a ripple in your experience. A small shift in attention, a slight pause in the waiting. It's not a big deal, yet it has this way of making you feel a little unsettled, as if the rhythm of the moment has been disrupted. This, in a way, is part of a larger human tendency. We crave certainty in a world full of uncertainty. Pressing the button again isn't just about impatience, it's about reclaiming control in a small, contained space. The act, no matter how insignificant, gives us a sense that we're guiding the moment. And yet when someone else presses that button, it's different. Suddenly, the world is out of sync. You were already in control, weren't you? But now, you're not. It's an imperceptible change, but it stirs something inside. A gentle, unnoticed unease that sits with you for just a moment before fading away. There's a small, delicate balance at play here. On one hand, pressing the button again feels like an assurance. On the other, it carries with it the faintest sense of dismissal, the unspoken suggestion that you're not quite trusted to get it right the first time. The button presses and the world continues, but you can't quite shake the feeling. Without much thought, it happens. You press again, just to be sure. You might not even notice it happening, but in that instant, something inside you settles. You feel a little more in control. The elevator will come, or it won't, but for a second, you've done all you can to make it so. Even now, in the stillness you can almost hear it, the small click of a button pressed too many times. The act lingers, long after the sound fades away, and it's not about the elevator. Not really. It's about the subtle dance of time, waiting, and the quiet reassurance we seek when the world seems out of our grasp. And then the doors open. The tension dissolves. For just a moment, it doesn't matter. The button has been pressed, the world has moved, and you're exactly where you need to be. Or maybe you're not. Maybe next time, you'll wait just a little longer, a little more patiently, without pressing again. Or maybe you won't. It's a small thing, really. But perhaps, every time the button is pressed, there's something deeper, something barely visible in the way it makes us feel. Maybe like a quiet whisper, it will always be there, waiting, and you'll never quite notice it. Or maybe you will. It doesn't ask for attention, but it never really leaves. You watch the puppy. It's small, its eyes wide and curious, and its fur is soft like a cloud. And then, without much thought, your head tilts. It's almost instinctual, a movement so subtle you might not even notice it. But something about the puppy calls for it. You lean in closer. It's not just the puppy, though. You might do the same thing when looking at a kitten, or even a baby, that slight tilt, just enough to change your perspective, to bring the image into focus. There's something about these small creatures that makes us shift in our seats, that makes us move ever so slightly. Still, it's not a gesture we think about. It's not something we consciously decide to do. It just happens. You might find yourself doing it without realizing, your head tipping to one side, your eyes narrowing just a little. There's a shift that occurs, and it seems to happen every time. Why do we do this? Why do we tilt our heads when we look at something small, innocent, and vulnerable? It's almost as if there's an urge, a reflex that pulls at us. Our bodies are quietly responding to the cuteness in front of us, to the innocent, pleading eyes of that puppy or kitten. Maybe it's in our biology. When we see something small and helpless, our protective instincts kick in. The tilt could be a way to get closer, to take in the full image of something so pure. It's as if by shifting our bodies, we open ourselves up more fully to the emotion that the creature stirs inside us. You see it in children too. When they encounter something soft and fragile, they instinctively lean forward, sometimes tilting their heads just as we do. It's as if the body is trying to express what the mind can't say. A small gesture, but one filled with care. A protective, tender instinct rising to the surface. Even now you might feel it, that subtle pull in your own body when you think about a puppy, or a baby, or even something else small that triggers that response. The way the muscles in your neck subtly respond to the cuteness before you. A slow, unconscious movement that happens before you can even process it. The tilt, so faint, so quiet, but it's there, and it's not just a reaction to something adorable, it's also a way of signaling. Perhaps it's a gesture that expresses understanding or curiosity. We tilt our heads when we need to pay closer attention, when we need to focus, when we need to see something from a different angle. What does it say, though, when we tilt our heads at something so small and pure? Does it mean that we're acknowledging the innocence of it? That we're responding to something that draws out the best of us? Maybe it's a reflection of how we want to protect, how we want to care. A simple shift that speaks volumes. Without much thought, we mirror the gesture. It's not something we actively choose. It's the same instinct that compels us to smile when we see a puppy, when we encounter something that stirs warmth inside us. It's an involuntary response, a movement of the body that matches the shift in our emotions. Still, you might wonder if it's the same with everything. Do we tilt our heads when looking at something that evokes awe or wonder? Perhaps not. It seems there's a subtle difference when it comes to the small, the vulnerable, the innocent. Something about them invites that soft, almost protective response. And yet the puppy doesn't know we're tilting our heads. It doesn't know that we're drawn in by its tiny paws, its soft fur, its curious eyes. It's just being itself, unaware of the effect it's having on the world around it. Still, it keeps us captivated, and in our response we keep coming closer. The tilt, though, is more than just a physical movement. It's a quiet moment of connection. Without a word, without any effort, the tilt creates a bond, however small, between us and the creature. We tilt our heads, and we understand, even for a fleeting moment, the simplicity of affection, of tenderness, of care. Even now, you can picture the puppy, its eyes wide and trusting, and you might feel the tilt coming on again, just a little. It's almost like a signal from deep inside, a reminder to be gentle, to approach with softness. It's subtle, but it's there. The movement that reflects the tenderness we carry within us, and yet the puppy never asks for this attention. It doesn't need the head tilt or the soft gaze. It simply exists, drawing us in with its unassuming presence. The response, the gesture, it's all ours, an offering we give to something so small and perfect in our eyes. And perhaps that's enough. Tomorrow or the next day, you might catch yourself doing it again. Tilting your head, without thinking, without effort. It's there, waiting for you to notice, to recognize. A simple act, almost imperceptible, but meaningful. The way we connect, without words, without thought, just a tilt, and the world feels just a little softer. It doesn't ask for attention, but it never really leaves. That simple gesture, that subtle shift in the way we see. It stays with us, like a soft hum beneath the surface. A movement so natural, it feels like it has always been there, just waiting to happen. And maybe you'll notice it again,